We opened our August 12, 2018 Harwich Board of Selectmen meeting at 5:30, in which we discussed two executive items. One was a prelude to the upcoming town administrative contract, and the second one was to conduct a strategy session with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on bargaining position of the public body. And we did discuss that and decided to deny the grievance that was brought before us. And so that would be part of the public meeting documents when it gets when we get a chance. I would like then to read be sure we're following the open meeting law, and that you are hereby informed that the town will be video and audio taping as well as live broadcasting this public meeting. In addition, anyone in the audience who plans to video or audio tape this meeting must notify the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. Is anyone interested in doing that? Now we'll move in then with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll move next to weekly briefing. Emily.
Good evening. I'm Emily Mitchell, Council on Aging Director. I'm coming before you with sad news. As some folks may have heard, former COA employee Richard Anderson passed away on August 2nd. He served the Council on Aging, he served our seniors and their families and their caregivers with great dedication for 5 years. And so we're very sad to hear that he has passed. So his family is holding a private service in September, but they've asked for donations to support cancer research in his name. And with the board's pleasure, perhaps we could have a moment of silence in his honor.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Anyone else for weekly briefing?
Good evening. I'm Ginny Hewitt from Brooks Free Library. I wanted to make an announcement about a new collection that we have, but before I do that, I wanted to say something that I think we take for granted in the library field, but people may not know, that everything that you ask about of the library, everything that you look at online, and everything that you check out is always confidential. It's not just part of our professional standards, it's the law. But some people may not, you know, it's a small community, you may know someone at the desk, you may not want to be seen picking up a book and coming up to the checkout counter or having it on your record for the time that you have it checked out. So we've started something new. It's called a Confidential Corner. It's a new collection on sensitive topics. So books and materials that people may want to take home and borrow without checking them out. You keep them as long as you want, as long as they're useful to you, and hopefully people bring them back so that someone else can use them after. Some of the subjects are mental health, depression, anxiety, suicide, addiction, alcoholism, gender identity, sexual trauma, and divorce. So I just wanted to let people know it's on the mezzanine, which is in between the first and second floor of the library. And a couple other things, since we have some seasonal residents here, I wanted to let everyone know the library has a large collection of things, which is something new in the library field. It's just non-traditional library items. So we have a lot of outdoor games, bocce, different kinds of ring toss, croquet, badminton. We have a stargazing kit. We also have various cooking and seasonal baking items and craft kits. You can actually check out a turntable if you have some records you want to play. We have a portable DVD
Don't laugh.
player.
Some of us have turntables. We're
Yeah.
so old enough.
Yeah, wireless, they're coming back. Wireless hotspots and other technology. So pretty much everything you might want to have a fun family get-together. And if you want to document that, we have a GoPro camera you can check out. So also, I just wanted to say that we have a few more weeks left in our summer reading program. This year it's going right up to Labor Day weekend. You know, often in the last 2 weeks of the summer, those type of programs stop. And that's when all the parents have to take off from work because many of the camps have stopped. So we have different fun activities. In the next few weeks, we've got an animal program tomorrow. There's a magician coming, we have a game competition, and so there's lots of fun activities and crafts, something almost every day. So you can look at our calendar on the website, or give us a call or stop in. And finally, something for you to keep in touch, keep up with what's happening when you're away and want to know what's going on Cape Cod. You can read the Cape Cod Times online or on your on a computer or on your phone or other device using your Brooks Free Library card. You get full access to the paper. It's the image edition. It looks just like it does in print. So you start at our homepage, choose e-library, and then it's under Newsbank as the provider, and you just need a library card. So you don't need to live here full-time to have a library card. Anyone can get one. We'd be glad to show you how to use that and other resources. But that way you can, you know, keep up with whatever issues you hear about tonight or that you're interested in. You'll have the latest information. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Anyone else for weekly briefing? If not, we'll move to public comments and announcements. And the first item is my great pleasure to join in the congratulations of Richard Houston, who I see sitting there as Teacher of the Year by the American Battlefield Trust. And rather than us speak, and I'm sure all the board joins in that, I think Kevin Bates, are you here?
Kevin called me a few minutes ago. I think there's an accident on Route 6 and he's dead stopped on the highway for the last 20 minutes. So.
Well, I'm going to postpone because I want Kevin's the teacher that nominated Richard, and I'd like for him to review why his nomination took place. So if it's okay with the rest of the board, I'd like to bring that back when. And Richard, will you raise your hand when he comes in?
I'll give you the high score.
Okay.
Can we clap once first?
We always have some arguments in the parking lot, but I'm told those are, what'd you say? Civil discourse, right? They're not, I gotta get terminology right. Chris, I've asked, can you, what I've asked our town administrator to do is give us a brief update of not the wastewater issue per se, because that will come back, and we have Charlie Sumner, but an update on the construction going, when that starts and what this,
Sure.
where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can imagine, where Robert Hours, the company that has won the bid, they have submitted what CDM designs. They have to submit what's called shop drawings to make sure they get approved. They're in that process now. They do anticipate that they'll actually have crews out and on the street on August 19th, so basically a week from today. They will start on Cemetery and then work their way to Compass. They do anticipate really the major disruptions in terms of traffic will be September 9th. They're going to start on 137 at Queen Anne. So 137 in Queen Anne on September 9th right now, and some crews will commence on some of the smaller roads until after the holiday.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for Chris from the board? Or anyone in the audience have a question about that? Thank you. We'll probably keep Chris on this as probably at least every other week's an update, because it's fast moving and people really want to know when their street's going to be affected. So we'll try to keep that as a ongoing agenda item. Moving next in, we'll go to our non-residents taxpayers meeting. Don?
Any other further public comment? Those were your two.
Oh, public comments, I'm sorry. Any other public comment? Sorry. Thank you, Don.
Hi, my name is Judith Underwood, and tonight I'm wearing, I'm a member of the Housing Trust,
Okay.
and I just want to ask for some clarification, something that came up at our last meeting and was supposed to discuss this meeting. So the Housing Trust consulting contract expired on June 30th. So number one, I'm concerned that our awesome consultants are getting paid. And number two, the question is, does that contract get renewed by the Board of Selectmen because you guys put that contract out? Or does the trust have the authority to renew that? Or do we need to put out a new RFP because of state procurement laws? And
I'll turn it. it's just come to our attention, is what you said, and so we'll have to address
Okay.
that. I assume we'll put that in our next agenda item to see where it goes.
Especially whether or not they're getting
And I
paid.
understand also from our procurement experts on that side of the table that we can't extend the contract per se, it has to go out again. And I'll turn it to Chris.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, in terms of it, part of this is that when the Board of Selectmen went out for a housing person, we did it as part of a CPC application, a Community Preservation Committee application. The Housing Trust wasn't formed until after the application deadline. So we did commence that work to do the RFP and to secure that services while the trust was in the process of forming itself. So for the first year, the Board of Selectmen did execute that contract, and it does have a provision in it to extend for an additional year. It would be my opinion that because the second year, and now that the trust is formed, that the trust would be within its legal rights to continue and put forth and approve that contract for this current fiscal year, with then an additional contract to go out from the trust directly and awarded by the trust for future contracts.
Okay. Now, Don?
Yeah, I beg to differ. The trust did not initiate the contract. It can't renew something it didn't issue.
Mr. Chairman, as a certified procurement officer in the state of Massachusetts, you know, the guidance that I'm providing, I believe is to be legally accurate. If we need to go down that road, we
Yeah.
will.
Let me suggest that we bring this back as an agenda item the next meeting.
Can I suggest we talk to legal counsel?
Well, of course, we'll do that as part of the agenda item, Don. Michael?
I was going to suggest that we get a legal opinion.
And we'll bring it back with legal opinion.
Okay, thank you.
And-
And I assume they're being paid anyway, right?
I assume so.
Okay, thanks.
Any other one for a weekly briefing? Okay, I'll move then to non-residents taxpayers meeting, and we start first with Chief Norm Clark. And while Chief is coming to the stand, I've been asked if I assume we have a lot of non-residents here tonight, or non-seasonal residents, which is great. For you that stand up and ask questions, please identify, give our name and your and your address.
Have non-residents here tonight, Mr. Chairman? Show of hands, do we have folks here? Or?
Fantastic.
I had no idea that the room would be full to listen to about a new fire station. I'm very pleased about that.
As we all are.
Just quickly, to brief everyone in the room, that you have a top-notch fire department. It's a fire rescue department. People sometimes are confused about who brings the ambulance and who brings the fire trucks. Well, we do. We're trained EMTs, paramedics, and firefighters. We have 36 full-time people, and we operate 2 fire stations. And last year, we did 5,200 runs, emergency calls, in the town of Harwich. So we're a busy operation. All the firefighters are cross-trained. One day they're on an ambulance, next day they're on a pumper, next day they're on a ladder truck, and whatever else that the folks need, we're there to help. So just to be clear, it's the Fire Rescue Service in Harwich, and I am very proud to represent the men and women of the Harwich Fire Department. I was asked to just brief the meeting tonight on the new fire station in East Harwich. The present fire station, that's the new one. We have about 3 acres of land in East Harwich out near Stop and Shop. The fire station that we operate out of now is about 40 years old. It was probably too small the day we moved in there 40 years ago. It houses 3 firefighters 24 hours, 7 days a week. They operate an ambulance and a fire truck out of Station 2. The new station is orientated to Route 39 as opposed to the old station orientated to Route 137. And the reason we did that was that we had enough land there that we did not need to have temporary housing when we did new construction. That saved all of us about $750,000 because we couldn't just shut down for a year or so. So we were fortunate enough, with the guidance of the board and the taxpayers at town meeting, to fund about a $7 million new firehouse out there, and we hope to be in that station early in September. The old station is about 5,000 square feet. The new station is just under 10,000 square feet. We presently have 2 double bays. This station will have 3 double bays. This will allow us for future expansion down the road. We got 40 years out of the old firehouse. Let's hope we get about 50 out of this one. We do house, it does house male and female employees, and the old station was absolutely inappropriate for that type of work condition. So I appreciate the residents and the taxpayers understanding our needs, and we hope to, again, we hope to be in that building sometime in early September.
Norm, may I ask one question? Because it comes to me all the time, is what happens to the old station in that area there?
That's a good question. We have money in that, in the project to demolish that station. In my opinion, I didn't see working with the board and early on a work group that we didn't see a real value to that station. But a use has popped up for that building. The sewer starts next week, as you mentioned, and they were going to have to find a home for trailers. So it made sense to say, well, why don't we just hold off on the demolition of that building and alleviate the cost of trailers for the contractor, and they're going to be able to use that building when we leave it.
Excellent. Thank you, Norm. When you ask questions, you have to go to the mic so we can hear you on TV. It's okay. We're not going to shoot you. You just have to go there. Yeah, please go to the mic, identify yourself, and that way we'll be follow the rules. We're a friendly group, as long as you identify yourself.
Oh my,
John
look,
Fletcher, 24 Bayview. I just wanted to quickly ask the chief, 5,200 responses or dispatches a year. Is that a workload that's easy to handle, especially it's 14 a day, but in the summer it might be quite more. Is it easy to handle, or is the department stretched? I just wanted to hear his response to that.
Thank you.
We're stretched. For instance, last week, we had a funny thing happen in town. It was a tornado. And just for the record, I have not been to tornado school. But we handled that. That day, in 24 hours, we did 250 emergency calls. So we're stretched. We try and do things in a cooperative manner, and we have to balance full-time people as opposed to overtime. Our overtime is high, but it certainly is more efficient than staffing to a level where we wouldn't need any overtime. So we do rely on callback. It's a full-time fire department. We do not have a call department in the town. We haven't for many years. So this time of year, yeah, we're stretched, but we have some real dedicated folks, and we rely on overtime to backfill as need be. And no one asked the question, but it's a good question to ask, is, well, what's the breakout on ambulance or emergency calls or EMS calls to fire calls? It varies, 60-40, 70-30. 70% EMS, some years 30% fire calls. Some years it's 60-40, it varies, but right around there.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions for the chief? If not, thank you very much.
Mr. Bates is here.
Let me interrupt the non-resident and Mr. Bates, if I can ask you to the podium. I'm glad you finally got through the traffic jam, but since you nominated Mr. Houston, I really want to give you some time to tell us what was in that nomination.
Sure. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kevin Bates, and I've been a history teacher at Harwich and now Monomoy Regional High School for the past 18 years, and I'm here tonight to pay tribute to my colleague, Rich Houston, who, as many of you know, was recently named National Teacher of the Year by the American Battlefield Trust. And if you don't mind, I'd like to read part of the nomination letter that I forwarded to the American Battlefield Trust.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. From my classroom next door, it has been my privilege to observe Rich Houston share his love of American history with hundreds of Monomoy students, may actually be more, since 2001. His enthusiasm and passion are on display as he reminds his students of the importance of studying history and the lifelong pursuit of protecting freedom and democracy, Rich's mantra. His devotion and dedication are reflected in his creative and comprehensive lessons and his attention to student excellence. Rich doesn't just teach history, he lives it. From class field trips to the JFK Library, in the Massachusetts State House, to his summer forays to Civil War battlefields, Rich shows his students that history exists beyond the walls of the classroom and directly affects their lives today. Now, Rich has impacted his students positively in several ways. I just wanted to give you one example. One of the difficulties in teaching advanced placement American history, which Rich has done for, I don't want to say how many years. One of the difficulties in teaching AP history is a relatively short amount of time teachers have to adequately cover the required material. Rich has created a solution to this problem through the creation of after-school AP US history study sessions. And although they are voluntary for the students, Rich often manages to encourage more than 90% of his students, not only his students, but other AP students from other classes, to attend these biweekly sessions where he is able to provide comprehensive coverage of topics he believes are important to student success in the AP program. So it's no surprise that our AP history scores are not only usually the highest in the school, but are often among the most successful in the country. In my 25 years of teaching history, Rich is easily the most dedicated teacher with whom I have been associated. The award is well-deserved and could not go to a more enthusiastic teacher and colleague. Rich is a dedicated educator who believes that the primary objective of teaching American history is to prepare students to assume the important role of citizen in a democratic society, or as I said before, in his words, to go out and protect democracy and freedom. On behalf of Rich's colleagues and students at Monomoy, I'd like to thank the Board of Selectmen for recognizing his accomplishment, the accomplishment of my colleague and friend, Rich Houston.
Richard, you're not off the hook. A couple words.
You want to say?
Don't make it a history, a couple. I know, I'm hesitant to ask you for a couple words, but I want to give you that
Put
opportunity.
this in historical context.
It's bad when you make a joke about a couple of words, and one of your former students has the biggest laugh in that. Thank you, Emily. I just want to say thanks to Kevin particularly for nominating me, but really to the whole community. When my wife and daughter and I moved down here 26 years ago, one of the visions we had in mind when we came here was working, teaching in the community, being in the community, raising our daughter in the community, and the holistic experience. And it's been fantastic. And so it's really this community. One of the benefits of going to these national conferences and summer programming is it really does put things in perspective. Just as one brief anecdote, one of the professionals that I was interacting with this summer was explaining the challenges that they face in his particular area. And he was saying, all we ever hear is Massachusetts this, Massachusetts that. Because we, even in this room, have had our challenges about how do we maintain and promote excellence. And sometimes it's easy to lose sight of all the wonderful things we do have that make Massachusetts and our community targets that other people in the country are looking to try to emulate. So, you know, to my family, who I couldn't do this without their support, and to the whole community, thank you.
Thanks again.
I just want to say congratulations, Richard. You know, in addition to being a dedicated teacher, you are also a dedicated supporter of education in this community. I think in the whole run-up to joining with Chatham and building our new high school, there was no stronger or more consistent supporter than you through that whole process. And as you know, no good turn gets not punished. When it came time to start construction, you were the only teacher that had to move your classroom for the construction period, which you did joyfully.
Absolutely joyful. And
Thanks,
I just want to
Richard.
say thanks to Kevin one more time for not telling people that it'll be my 42nd. Yeah, I mean, that he didn't want to mention how many years it's
Okay, good, thank
And
you.
how many years have you run the Boston Marathon?
this past year was 31.
We'll move back then to, that was a great pause, but now we'll move back into the taxpayer meeting, and Mr. Radone, Harbor Master, can lead us through the status.
Good evening, everyone. John Rendon, Harbor Master. Just real quick, could give you a summary of kind of our department and our activities for the year. We have a department of 4 full-time employees, and we hire a few seasonals during the summer months. And, you know, we have a pretty expansive area that we're responsible for. Saquatucket Harbor, Witchmere Harbor, Allen Harbor, all of the Herring River, Round Cove, Pleasant Bay, Long Pond, and of course we are responsible for shoreline out 3 miles off the coast. So we keep patrol boats in Saquatucket and Round Cove and Long Pond throughout the entire summer for response. Our primary functions, our primary duties, first and foremost, maritime assistance, and we've had close to 40 cases this summer. Many are tows or disabled boats. Marina management, mooring management, law enforcement. We're in charge of doing all the dredging to keep our waterways open, setting our aids to navigation, and a lot of permitting gets done throughout our office. So it's been a busy summer. I'm sure many of you have seen some significant changes over at Saquatucket Harbor. We just completed 2 major projects. Last June of 18, we finished the waterside project where we totally reconstructed the marina. New slips. We pulled all the old slips out. We bought a dredge in. They dredged about 18,000 cubic yards of material out of the harbor. And then we put in all brand new docks, new services, plumbing, electrical, fire suppression, and internet. We added 11 additional slips. And the project was a $7 million project. We got a $1 million grant from the state in support of that project. And as a matter of fact, on later this month, on the 27th of August, Lieutenant Governor will be in town to do a completion ceremony recognizing not only the completion of that project, but the landside project that I'll speak to here shortly. And so much of the increased revenue that's being generated as a result of the new marina, the additional slips, and we're getting a whole lot more visitors in. Much of that revenue is going to help pay the debt service down on that project. The landside project was just completed this past June. I mean, we just, as a matter of fact, we still have some landscaping to do, but all the construction is done and we're up and running, and it included both Saquatucket proper and the building, the lot behind us that used to be the former Downey property that the town purchased a few years back. And that project included a new Harbor Master and Natural Resource Director office building where we do all the business there at the harbor. It included a new septic system with new public restrooms and new boater restrooms and showers. It included a leased snack shack and leased artisan sheds on property. And we have a boardwalk that goes the entire length of the waterway. And on the former Downey property, we moved our workshop from the old Bank Street, old fire station building, and now we have a new workshop building there on the Downey property. We added close to 90 additional parking spaces there on the former Downey property. And we also we've moved the ticket operation for the ferry and a couple of the other passenger boats over to that facility. And we did that to prevent people having to get their tickets across the street and cross Route 28. It was a safety issue as far as I was concerned. The whole facility is, the docks and landside are all compliant, ADA compliant, and I think we're pretty proud of that. Anywhere you go on that property, you can either ramp to or get to the docks from any part of the parcel. That landside project was approximately a $4 million project. We received a $1 million grant from the state, Seaport again, and we also received close to $190,000 grant to go towards the design through the state CZM. So those are two major projects that I think will be in place for a long, long time. We've got a beautiful marina now, and again, revenue generated from the snack shack and the artisan sheds, the leasing of those will again go towards helping pay down some of the debt service. Dredging this year was busy. We dredged Round Cove, took out almost 5,000 cubic yards out of Round Cove. We dredged Allen Harbor. We do that every year, unfortunately. Took out close to 8,000 cubic yards out of that channel. And we dredged, there was a shoal forming up on the end of the East Jetty in Witchmere. We were able to lease a long reach excavator from Plymouth County. We came in and actually DPW did the work. They have an operator that, heavy equipment operator that actually dredged that about 2,000 yards out of Witchmere. Upcoming projects, we're in the middle of design and permitting for replacing the Round Cove boat ramp. If anybody knows Round Cove, it's a tough landing. It's a really old ramp. We went to go, design the project and realized it was in place well before any of the permitting requirements were in place. So we're having to start from scratch in that regard. And we also have a small project over at the Wixon Dock Landing. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions?
Thank you.
John, are the county dredges all up and running now?
The county dredge?
Yeah. Well, there's several. They have three, right?
Two.
They have two right
two,
now.
and they're
My
purchasing
understanding
another
is
one.
they're purchasing another one. We got dredged by their new dredge, and it worked great. I mean, it worked fine. I think the other one was going into the yard. So I think they're planning to get a third, at least was the last.
That's what I've heard.
That's the last I heard. So I'm a big fan and big supporter of the county dredge. They do a wonderful job for us.
Ed?
Yeah, just a comment, I know from talking to your staff at the Harbor Master's office, one of the things that they find as a result of the new marina, the new docks, the new, all the other new landside facilities, and especially the new best shower facility for visiting voters on the Cape at this point, that it's hard pressed when somebody comes in and wants an overnight spot to find one anymore.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing really well with visitor dockage. We have a number of designated transient slips that we don't permit to people. We just keep them for transients. And then we do a really good job, in particularly Michelle Morris. I got to give her a ton of credit. We backfill. So if somebody takes their boat and they go to Nantucket for a week, we backfill and rent that space to a transient boater. And, that happens a lot. So we're able to, very seldom do we turn somebody away who wants to come in and stay at our marina for a couple of nights. And, this month alone, our visitor dockage number more than doubled from last year in numbers and revenue. So people are hearing about our marina, and they're coming to see it, and I think they're enjoying it. So it's good. It's good for the town.
Did you have a question?
No, I'm jumping in.
Carolyn?
I'm just jumping in. I'm sorry, Carolyn Carey, Community Center Director. I know John was going to tell you that the Seaside Marketplace at Saquatucket Marina features new vendors each week. a unique shopping experience offering a variety of goods, including handmade baskets, photography, Cape Cod decor, jewelry, and I know he wanted to extend an invitation for all of you to come down and see it. We just opened the inaugural season on July 4th, so it is a beautiful place. Yeah, that's what he wanted to say. So, and I want to thank Erica. She's been doing a great job filling those. So if you have a moment, just stop by and visit the Artisan Shacks.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Right, John?
With that update, we'll move to the Recreation Director, Eric.
Thank you. I'm Eric Beebe. I'm the Recreation and Beach Director, and we have no sharks. Thank you.
No.
But I know that's the hot topic issue. We have had no shark sightings, but we are prepared. We prepare our staff for anything.
okay.
Lifeguards are CPR, first aid trained. We also train them in tourniquets now as well. So we're ready. But aside from that, the beaches are very busy again, as usual. We've only had about 2 rain days so far this year. Our biggest gauge of gauging how busy the beaches are is by our day passes that our gate guards sell. And right now we're on pace to sell the most we've ever sold. So it's, you know, it's a busy season. We also have 2 great parking enforcement officers that have been writing tickets to people that don't park the right way. They've written, I know my report says 375. Up to today, it's 450 tickets at $50 a piece. So they're really on top of it. We have a full lifeguard staff again this year. A big part of that is our in-house training. We do in-house lifeguard training every year, recertification and certification. So we do have 7 gate attendants on staff, 5 of which took our lifeguard training class this year. So as usual, we're going to bump them up. Next year they will be lifeguards, and it just replenishes our supply year to year. New things at the beach, we have a new beach vendor contract, Mobile Mixers. They have a vendor at Red River Beach as well as Bank Street Beach. And we've heard all great things about them so far. So they have a 3-year contract at Red River and a 2-year contract at Bank Street. Our other part of the summer is our kids' youth programming. We're on pace to have well over 1,300 kids this year in our programs, including our full and half-day camp, tennis lessons, swim lessons, everything you could think of that a kid wants to do. We do it, and we have a great staff for that, too. It's a lot of local kids that come back every year, high school and college aged, to run our camp. As far as the rec department in general, project-wise, we have a lot going on this year. We have a lot of projects coming up, one of which is the final phase of Brooks Park, which will be all LED lighting at the park. So that we should be doing in the fall. We also will be paving Pleasant Road Beach to finish off the paving of all the beach parking lots. We got funding for all 11 new lifeguard stands for all the beaches, which was in a lot of need. They were falling apart. It was time, so that's going to happen this year. We're also constructing a new restroom facility at Sand Pond this year to start a new project at Sand Pond to kind of revitalize the area. And we're going to be putting in a new scoreboard at White House Field. So that's exciting as well for our local Mariners team as well as our high school team. And then things we have going forward that we're looking into and the Rec Commission is looking into is, again, at White House Field, we're looking into a new lighting system there as well. And new fencing at Brooks Park Baseball Field and some of the senior softball fields down behind White House. So we got a lot going on, and we're staying busy, and I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Any questions for Eric? If not, thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Eric,
Oh.
one question. I know you started the summer camps early this year.
Yep.
When will they be running till?
We normally do 4 2-week sessions. This year, there was a large request for a session to kind of gap, to take part in the gap between when school ended and when the camp started. So we had a session in between. It ends the third week in August, but we're actually doing a bonus week this year.
Good.
So people could sign up for a bonus week as well. So we expect it to be full pretty quick. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a report from our DPW Director, Lincoln Hooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Link Hooper, DPW Director. I was asked to talk about the beaches, trash, and roadways, and it looks like roadways was left off the agenda. I'd like to start by just giving you a brief overview of the DPW. Department of Public Works consists of, I think, 6 separate departments. Obviously, highways, it takes care of everything associated with your roads and your beaches. Disposal takes care of all the town's solid waste and recycling services. We have a centralized facility maintenance that takes care of all the town's buildings, excluding the schools, including custodial services. Centralized vehicle maintenance that takes care of all the town's vehicles in town. And then we have Parks Department that takes care of all the various ball fields and memorial squares and so forth. And a cemetery department that has maintenance duties over 100 acres of cemeteries last time I checked. I'd like to start by saying that usually this time, I'm very proud of the condition of the town of Harwich and the aesthetics associated with it. We are currently not up to par where we should be. Reason simple, 3 weeks ago, we had a tornado come through that none of us had ever seen, and we had 0 time to plan for. It was quite remarkable to see the efforts town-wide that came through. I've worked from the town since 1991. I started my career at the disposal area and actually worked Hurricane Bob. And I can tell you that this generated more debris than Hurricane Bob, and it's just amazing. If you haven't been to the disposal area, we're currently chipping a 40,000 yard pile, and probably generated another 5,000 yards since the Friday before, so in like 10 days. It's just absolutely phenomenal how much damage was done so quickly. Hopefully never happens again. I've lived on the Cape my whole life. I've seen one when I was a youngster over at the Yarmouth Drive-In by Captain Park, as it took the sign, twisted it around, and cut half a building off, and that was 1976 or 77. Anyhow, the efforts that I've seen town-wide from all the departments is absolutely commendable. The DPW, I could not be prouder of the efforts the men and women made there, and it's a real privilege to lead them. They did yeoman's work. They really all came together. The town, initially, I was thinking was going to be 4 to 6 weeks to pick up. The governor showed up, and we had several hundred additional resources come to town with essentially 0 warning and saying, put these people to work. And, you know, my staff worked miracles along with the fire department and police department. And again, I could not be prouder to be associated with them. That is why the sides of the roads, the beaches, and so forth are not where it should be at this time of year. We missed beach cleaning for a solid week. We just got on roadside mowing, I think, today. Trash, we walked away from trash pickup for a couple days because response to the storm was all hands on deck. And I mean, everybody that wasn't absolutely needed in some other job was working the storm. And we're still out chasing it 3 weeks later. It has calmed down significantly, but the guys did remarkable work. And so did, again, to repeat myself, fire, police, and everyone in town just really came together, and it's a privilege to be here. Public beaches. We have 22 public beaches in town. We service 7 of them. The freshwater beaches, Cahoon Road and Fernandez Bog, get serviced about once a month. And by service, I mean we take a surf rake that makes it look like down in Florida someplace. They really do a great job at cleaning up the beaches. The rake picks up shells, any debris, and makes it all smooth and pristine looking. Red River Beach, Pleasant Road Beach, Earl Road Beach, Brooks Road, and Bank Street typically get that service 3 times per week. We missed, I believe, a little over a week doing it. We got back on track, and so you shouldn't really notice much interruption with that. We missed, well, let me just follow through here. Trash pickups. We're responsible, we have a small packer truck that we go out and do all the trash pickups in the town. There's actually 38 stops with 88 cans deployed. It's 38 stops with 88 cans deployed. It's a lot of trash. It's much more efficient that we picked up a small packer truck a couple years back, probably 4 years now, I believe, versus how we used to do it, is gather it in the back of 1-ton trucks, and then it would be full, and you're making multiple trips. Where a packer truck, you just design the route, and it's pretty efficient and picks up. That service level is once a day of the week. Some of the busiest beaches, Red River Beach gets it twice a day, and everything gets twice a day, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That is cut back once we get off-season, usually middle of September. That is cut back significantly on how many pickups we get, obviously dependent on workload. And then at some places once we get to October-ish, a lot of the cans are taken in that no longer have a need to be out and deployed. Public restrooms, we have 10 of them, and they are cleaned during the summer months twice a day, stocked and cleaned twice a day. Once we get back past Memorial Day, that's again contracted to once per day. What we got here? A lot of mowing activities. We have, believe it or not, 19 memorial squares that require mowing. Most of those are every other week or essentially as needed. The parks we have 6 parks in town, and those get mowed once per week. We have athletic fields, which we have, White House Field is a premier field, and we have people come around from a long ways away touting how good this field is. It really is something to be very proud of. All of the athletic fields get mowed usually every other day because they all have irrigation on them, and they get a bunch of need mowing. We have a guy that makes it look like you're at Fenway when he mows. And when he's not there for some reason, it still looks mowed, but I get feedback about how come it doesn't look as good as it usually looks. And we have 11 town buildings or grounds that are also require mowing, and that's usually once a week or so. Road maintenance. This year we have a contracted road maintenance plan. We have already completed drainage on Depot Road in South Harwich. That is ahead of, well, not ahead of, but that is ahead of the gas company doing paving. We had 9.5 miles of roadways in town that National Grid dug up to install a new pressurized main. Although our intermediate ride quality patch seems like it is done, it is not. They owe us a curb-to-curb overlay, meaning an entirely new road at some point in the future. My position has been the longer we delay that, the better the road quality will be, meaning you're going to have settlement happening from them placing the main in the ground. The longer we can hold off on that, the better end product we will have. Some surrounding towns are pushing to get that done sooner than later because they didn't require the intermediate ride quality patch. Example of that's Great Western Road. You get into Dennis, you can tell you're in Dennis. I have to credit our road maintenance manager, Chris Nickerson. He put together the requirements that held National Grid to that, and he's done an excellent job, and National Grid has followed through with everything we've required of them to this point. We don't have much in the way of paving this year. We have a Main Street extension that'll be done this fall. Unfortunately, the Lower County Road project, town meeting did not support complete reconstruction of that road. So we just came to a plan to do some work in the fall, do some better patching in the fall, put some drainage in, and then chip seal it to seal the road up, and buy the town some time to decide what they want to do with that road in the future. And what else on here? We had an emergency replacement of Great Western Road culvert. There is a culvert that we were actually losing the roadway. Seems like a long time ago. It was maybe 3 or 4 months ago. We had to take some emergency action to save that. We are going to be in the planning stages of developing. This is a project for replacement of that culvert. And just some normal crack sealing and chip sealing some various roads that are coming up, and some miscellaneous drainage locations. And that concludes my remarks for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions for Link? For those that weren't here after the tornado, the town looks great. Absolutely great.
2 tornadoes.
Two.
Microburst and tornado.
Yeah. So you don't have to apologize for the way the town works, Link. You can change that story.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we would be at that for 4 to 6 weeks if the governor didn't show up and mandate that we get some resources. Without a doubt, I was talking to the administrator immediately after it. We knew that. They came down immediately. MEMA was here the next day with probably 200 resources. Day after that, another couple hundred resources. Department of Corrections.
You know,
It was amazing.
I certainly take that point. I would also emphasize that it's a two-way street. That only works if our public safety officials, you are working and coordinating all the activities with them to make it happen. So all the credit goes to them. The other half goes to us.
I take all the complaints, sir.
Okay. Questions for Link? If not, thank you. Next on the agenda is Council on Aging, Emily Mitchell.
Hi folks, I'm Emily Mitchell, Council on Aging Director. So I'm here to talk to you about some of the programs that we offer at the COA. I want to start with our mission, which is to support and advocate for older adults, their families, and caregivers. And we really provide a lot of resources in service to that mission. It may be a surprise to folks in this room that about 53% of the town of Harwich is age 60 or older, and that's who we serve by statute. So we really do get a large number of folks in town can benefit from the services that we provide. Our services really run the gamut. So we do programs inside the community center, which is where the COA is located. Every day we do a dining program. Typically it's a lunch program, but once a month we do a dinner program with entertainment. Once a month we do a men's breakfast, and once a month we do a women's breakfast. And those will have speakers from the community come and give updates about what we have going on. So those are very popular events. We have fitness classes that improve balance. We do yoga, we do meditation, those types of things. We do higher intensity cardio. I have one high intensity cardio class taught by someone who's 89. So we have folks teaching the classes and benefiting from the classes, which is really an incredible place to be. We do bring a lot of resources in, and we connect folks to resources outside of the building. So a couple times a month we have legal counsel come in for free consultations. Several times a week we have Shine counselors come in, and they help on health insurance questions. We have a caseworker come in from the Homeless Prevention Council every week to help folks who are facing housing insecurity. So we bring all of those right into the building, and then we also work to connect folks to resources outside the building. So we can help you brainstorm if you need home care, or if you're looking to change your housing situation, maybe look into senior housing or assisted living or nursing home care. If you have family members who are experiencing Alzheimer's or other forms of dementia. These are all things that we can help connect folks to resources so that they can be living comfortably and safely and independently for longer. Another thing that we do provide transportation services. So we try to meet some essential needs. We go to both Shaw's and Stop and Shop as grocery stores. We go to the family pantry. We go to the library. We transport folks to any program that we have at the building. So anything we have going on, we will take folks from their home to the COA and back home. It's an entirely free service. Our transportation services have been getting some public attention lately that the chairman has asked me to comment on. There's been some discussion that our services are being cut down, or that we've changed policies. I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. Our policy is unchanged, and our scheduled locations are unchanged. Earlier in the fall, it came to my attention that some of our van drivers were going to unscheduled locations, and a few safety concerns cropped up, and so we've stopped going to unscheduled locations. So it's just we're adhering to the locations that are scheduled and printed in our newsletter. On that note, I'll mention our newsletter. So we put out a bi-monthly newsletter. I have in my hands our July-August 2019 edition. I did print and bring copies for folks here if anyone would like to take some home. You can also sign up to receive it via email or in the mail. That's another free service. So we're happy to get that information out to folks. And that's really the best way to hear about our updated programs, our one-time events, our continuing programs, and any resources that might be a benefit to you or to your families. I did just want to highlight some of our more fun one-time programs. Eric Beebe, Recreation Director, mentioned sharks. We're having the Atlantic White Shark Conservancy come in October to give a presentation, which we're really excited about. This week and last week, we've been working with Outer Cape Health Services to do a mental health first aid class, which is for both professionals but also families and community members, so you can recognize when someone might be in a crisis and respond appropriately and connect them to professional and community resources. We've done programs about tick-borne illnesses and prevention. We've done pre-planning seminars, which help you think about what's going to happen when you die, something that's going to happen to every one of us. So how do you plan for funerals? How do you plan for flower arrangements? How do you communicate your obituary? These types of things that we all have to think about and plan for and do, we try to handle in a fun and approachable way. So we do a lot of really great things. I hope some of you will take me up on my offer and take home the newsletter. I did bring some with me. And other than that, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Emily. Questions for Emily? Thanks, and Carolyn's getting up. This is a problem.
Next time, you just put me on the agenda. Still Carolyn Carey. Did you all get a chance to go to the harbor yet? Just kidding. Emily and Eric have mentioned the activities and events that we have. So I thought I would bring along books from the community center that list all of the groups and activities and what we have in the building. So take that. You can also find it online with additional programs. And I promise not to keep doing this, but there is one more building to talk about, so we'll see when I pop up. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Emily. Next on the agenda is Channel 18, and we'll see if we can get Jamie from actually show herself from behind the screen.
Let me just train my stand-in for a second. Talk about this Carolyn Carey.
Hello, everyone. Jamie Goodwin, Channel 18 Station Manager. I'm just going to go over a couple of ways that you can find some of our programming. If you are a non-resident taxpayer and you are so fortunate to not be here when it snows, you can watch all of Channel 18's programming via YouTube. And you can find that a couple of ways. If you want to look up at the screen here, I'll just show you. Right on the Town of Harwich's main website, you can scroll down, and on the left-hand side, there's this nice little button that says Channel 18. You can click on that. In case you wanted to see what's on live, if you are in Harwich and you do have Comcast 18, you can just click on this, and it'll give you a list of all of our programs that are going to air for the next couple of days. Ooh, I don't know if I can go back. I shouldn't have clicked that. Sorry, hold on. Zoom out so I can see my whole computer screen, sorry. Additionally, on the Channel 18 page, you can also scroll down and you can hit YouTube. Every single video that we film, every Board of Selectmen meeting, ConsCom, golf, affordable housing, Harwich Center Initiative, planning, historic district, wastewater, parking committee, Board of Appeals, Board of Health, CPC, you can watch them all right here. They're all in easy to find playlists, or you can just, find something that we filmed recently, like the Cultural Center in Seaside Marketplace. We do a weekly show called Community Journal, and that highlights all of our town departments and anything that's going on around town in the upcoming week. We have, you can watch town band programs. So I'm just going to click on a few to highlight them. You can watch the most recent town band concert. You can watch the Saquatucket Landside and Harborside project from all of our drone footages, and they're available on YouTube. So this is our most recent one where you can see people eating outside the dockside. Additionally, when the tornado came to town, we went out with a drone, and you can also see drone footage of Harwich Center and Harwich Port, and that has 1,300 views. And we didn't really advertise that. People found that on their own by Googling Harwich tornado, and that's where we got most of the hits on that. So that's pretty cool. You can see that there's some things get 5 views, some things get 58 views. I think it's a win if one person watches one video. I think that's important. You heard the Council on Aging director say that 53% of our town is 60 and older. We do have a lot of, homebound seniors, and I think that it's very important to be able to bring to the home all the things that are going around town. We always show the Cranberry Harvest Festival, all the Cran Jam music. We are going studio to studio at the Harwich Cultural Center, and we're interviewing every single artist or creator that has a space over there. We have 6 episodes of that. It's very interesting. I film all of those and I edit them. We air them on our show Community Journal. They're on YouTube. You can see Cindy Williams right here comes on once a month and does a chamber update. Our Council on Aging director, our Community Center director, our Recreation director, they all come on and do monthly updates. And that is an open invite to all of the departments that we have here in town. Some are more interested in coming on television than others. I just want to say we have 36 boards and committees that meet regularly here in town, and Channel 18 covers 14 of them. I hope for the year 2020 to be over 20 boards and committees. I have a new hearing room equipment will be finished by the end of hopefully this month in the town hall library, so we can get some more boards and committees that meet in there. I just recently finished adding some equipment to the studio at the community center, so I can tap into the 4 or 5 committees that meet there. I do have to chase people down occasionally to get them to come on television, so I just want to let everybody know, if you don't see a board or committee, just know that I am currently tracking them all down and twisting arms. Any questions? Oh, I did want to mention, I do have a staff. I have one other full-time person, Caleb Ledoux, who does all the drone footage. He also does all the website updates. He does all the agendas and minutes on the town website. I have a videographer who's part-time, and I have a handful of volunteers that are incredible. Jack and Eileen Wyatt, Vic Alton, Dinah Lane, John Ketchum, and Jim and Jane Fulton. So thank you.
Thank you, James. Just one comment. One active committee that you televise is the Voter Information Committee.
Yes. I did approach them, but they changed their meeting location from the community center to the Thornton Room at the library.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I did speak to the chairperson of that committee, and I'm trying to lure them back to the community center.
Okay. Well, maybe we can help in that endeavor.
Yes.
I guess I'm having a beer at dockside. I need to wave at the camera. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You know what? That's actually, if you have time, I would go back and look at the drone footage. It's really amazing. There's some really nice calming music that you can listen to. It doesn't come over here, but it's pretty cool. There are the shacks. Oh, there's some of the music. But you can also, the tornado drone footage is actually pretty interesting. And then Caleb actually took a handheld camera, if I go back. I know I'm taking up a lot of time, not very important. But he walked around Harwich Center on foot, and we didn't air that on the station. We just posted that on our YouTube page, and it has 258 views. So you can see some of the damage if, you have friends and relatives that don't believe that there was a tornado. You say, here's a link, check this out. So I really think everybody should be watching Community Journal. We do that every week, and my volunteers put in hours upon hours to make a 45-minute show, so.
Thank you, Jamie. Comments or questions with? Thanks again. We'll move next on the agenda is wastewater issues. And Chris, I'll leave you, let you start
Actually,
this.
have
And you'll,
with us this evening, Mr. Chairman, Mike Judici and Charlie Sumner. Maybe they can come up to the front table if they would like.
Okay. Hi, Mike.
Good evening. For the record, Mike Judici from CDM Smith.
And Charlie Sumner from Weston and Sampson.
We'll turn it to you then to
Okay.
lead us through.
So sure, I was just here to give an update on Phase 2 of the wastewater program. For those that aren't aware, a lot has been happening over the last 6 to 8 months, and we're finally ready to start construction on the first contract. So Phase 2 was broken up into 2 separate construction contracts for bidding. We bid the first contract. It includes sort of the main spine of the system in this area along Route 137 between Queen Anne Road up to Round Cove Road. There's a figure that hopefully you'll...
She's bringing it up
She's
now.
looked at the- okay. Just get a sense of what the system looks like and where it covers. So that contract, there we go, and it's a little difficult to see, but so contract 1 is defined there on the left, lower left, if you will. Again, runs along the main spine from...
Maybe we can cut off some lights. Does that help?
No. Along...
The viewers at home can't see the people.
Okay.
So it runs, should I?
Yeah, you can.
Is that okay? So again, generally, this is the limits of contract 1. Phase 2 includes this whole area. So this is, to orient yourself, this is Route 137 and Route 39. So contract 1 essentially includes 137 from Queen Anne Road up to Round Cove Road and a lot of the side streets off of it, as well as a piece of 39 to the southwest and some of these side streets here as well. Contract 2, we'll talk a little bit more about the impacts of the bidding of contract 1 was originally to include this area to the north and east of Route 137. We've refined the limits of that based on budgetary constraints, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. But that's basically the limits of contract 2. So as we had discussed, contract 1 was bid back in May. The low bidder was local contractor Robert B. Auer. The town has entered into a construction contract agreement with them. They're actually ready to start construction a week from today on August 19th, on Monday. So finally, after many years of planning, the town has been through a lot. We'll finally have a shovel in the ground, so we should be proud of that. So they're going to be starting, so there's a list of the streets that are included in contract 1 and the houses as well. Not going to run through the whole list, but there are a couple that I'll point out. So they're starting next week with one crew in the Cemetery Road area. So they'll be working on Cemetery Road, Compass Drive, Herndon Way, Ellis, White Pine Circle, in that area for the next couple of months. They're going to come in and start with a second crew the week after Labor Day on September 9th, on that Monday, and they're going to start down at the intersection, the low point of the system, which is the intersection of 137 and Queen Anne Road. So they'll have 2 crews running by the middle of September to start making progress on that first contract. There was one point I want to point out. One street I wanted to point out on that list was Queen Anne Road. So there are a number of houses on Queen Anne Road, as some of you may or may not know. In that portion of the town, that is the town line between Harwich and Chatham. So we've been coordinating with Chatham for well over a year now on many issues. So all the wastewater from this system will flow into Chatham to be treated at their wastewater treatment plant.
One of the coordination issues was dealing with the houses on Queen Anne Road. The houses on the north side of the street are in Harwich. The houses on the south side of the street are in Chatham. So the decision was made that actually Chatham's contractor, they have a separate construction contract to build the facilities in Chatham that are needed to convey flow from Harwich to the Chatham treatment plant. Their contractor is going to install the sewer in Queen Anne Road. So they'll be connecting Harwich residents and Chatham residents to that sewer in Queen Anne Road. We wanted to avoid what happened years ago. Both towns put their own water main in Queen Anne Road. So there's actually two water mains, one for Harwich, one for Chatham. Obviously not the most ideal situation, so we wanted to be a little more coordinated and efficient. So we coordinated with Chatham and putting one sewer to serve both towns.
And Mike, if I can interrupt, what's the timing of that? Do you know that Chatham will work?
So Chatham just opened bids a couple of weeks ago, so I would suspect that they would be awarding that contract. So they just opened bids, I believe, 2 weeks ago, so I would assume within the next month that they would be awarding that contract. It happens to be the same contractor, Robert B. Auer, that Harwich got for their contract, which is good news in terms of coordination, because there's obviously going to have to be a lot of coordination between the work in Chatham and the work in Harwich in terms of traffic detours and interruption to people's everyday lives. So from that standpoint, that was good news to hear that it was the same contract.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, communication project?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Charlie Sumner. I'm the owner project manager, outreach coordinator for the town. So a couple of things that I would remind people is that the town has a reverse 911 communication system. We're going to be sending out notices using that system to let people know what's going on in the neighborhood. I know the town has sent out cards for people to register with the water department. I also know that people are busy. But if you still want to be added to the reverse 911 list, just please contact the water department, and that can still happen. I think a couple of things that I would like to add is we recently had a meeting. Cindy Williams from the Chamber of Commerce set up a meeting with Chris Clark and myself, Dan Pelletier, our water superintendent, to have the initial conversations with the business community. We understand that this is going to have an impact upon them, and we want to make sure that we work with our business partners to sort of inform them, get their input on this project, and try to minimize disruption to their business activities as much as possible. So I think the essence of that communications network have started, and obviously we wanted to mature and improve over time. My telephone number is 508-430-7514. It's extension 3313. And I have received a lot of phone calls, as you can well imagine, with the articles in the newspaper and the notifications. And my practice is when that's a town hall number, but it does ring to my cell phone. So my goal is to return people's phone calls either the day I receive it or the next day. And people have a lot of questions. And what happens when we start construction in a neighborhood is the Board of Health is going to send out a stub location form. And that's an important item, is so you'll receive this notice from the Board of Health in the mail, and we really need to know where you want us to locate the stub connector to your property. There's a form that's included with that notification that you need to fill out and return to the Board of Health. Some people have already engaged the services of an engineer to help with that. Some people have not. CDM Smith has a resident engineer, John DeSimone, who will come out and provide assistance during this interim period to help you locate your stub location. And he'll be very responsive in that. Also, I would like to add that Dan Pelletier, who's your water superintendent, I've been working with Dan. Dan has also has a willingness to go out and take a look at your property and provide some advice and assistance in terms of that stub location form. There is a document on the town's website. It's a homeowner's sewer connection guidebook, and it really is a nice document, I think, that was put together, I believe, by the Board of Health or the Wastewater Planning Committee, that provides a lot of guidance on this very issue. And while it looks complicated, there are resources through CDM Smith and the town of Harwich to help you navigate that first important step as we tackle your neighborhood. Also, the other thing I'd like to say is I think our goal is we're going to have construction schedules sort of in a 3-week horizon. So, you know, as our contractor is out there working with the CDM Smith in the town, they'll start planning out 3 weeks in advance, and then we'll start using those cycles to notify the neighbors as we progress down the road. I've received a number of phone calls from people who said, geez, I haven't received my stub location form yet. And it's because you're not on a construction sequencing schedule yet. But once we know those schedules, we'll start to send those forms out, and then you'll receive those in the mail. And once again, most important, if you need any help, please don't hesitate to call us, and we'd provide a lot of hands-on assistance in that process.
And we have a very complete website as well, and I think your name and number is on the website.
That's right.
So if you didn't get that information when you were mentioning it, go to the town website, and there's a button that says wastewater. So we're trying to make it very visible to get that information.
Thank you, Larry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed?
Just a question. I know the issue of location of the stub is a major concern. Some of the things that sort of direct where that stub can be is where the other utilities are, especially the water line. And I know in the past, the town's, years ago, town's policy was to keep them 10 feet away, and very miserly on granting variances to double line the waistline. There's some indication that that's view has changed given the project that's in front of us. How would and where would a homeowner go to get direction on whether they would qualify for that sort of variance? Because in some cases, you know, it's the difference between a connection that has one turn and 100 feet as opposed to 16 turns to go around the house the other way and 700 feet.
I would say specifically Dan Pelletier would be the one to go to at the water department, superintendent, in terms of any kind of waiver that they would need to grant for separation between the sewer and the water line. They actually have, I believe, all of the service tie card information loaded on their site, so people can log in, put in their address, and find out exactly where, as best as the records show, where their water line is located. Similarly, the Board of Health has scanned and put all of the existing septic system information, as-built drawings, on their website as well. So it's very easy to go in and type in your address and get a lot of good information. And then certainly, you know, a quick phone call to Dan or eventually to John, our resident engineer, if there are any further questions in terms of where would make the most sense to put the service stub.
Okay.
Chris, you have some
Just on
comment?
that, we were at a meeting the other day, and I think Dan had mentioned that 10-foot is a DEP regulation, but if you have a sleeved line, I believe that you also can comply, so there are a few alternatives for folks, but I would encourage them to get a hold of Dan, and the Board of Health also is responsible for the septic systems.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as people would be logging on, just to clarify what you said, it's the health department that would have that information, not the Board of Health.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, right. Okay. Charlie?
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. I think you've covered that. Yeah, thanks. Yep.
Any questions for these two gentlemen? It's been a very concise and educational presentation, so thank you.
Well, it's getting late. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Next on the agenda is overall financial position of the town, and we welcome Carol Coppola.
Hi, good evening. Carol Coppola, the Finance Director for the town of Harwich. I would like to provide you with some information on fiscal year 19 that ended June 30th. We're in the final stages of closing the books, as you might say. We'll have that done this week, we anticipate. So this information is draft, subject to any last-minute changes that we come up with that are necessary. But I don't expect that the information that I'm presenting to you this evening is going to change in any material way whatsoever. As you're aware, the largest portion of revenue that the town of Harwich receives is from property taxes, real estate taxes, and personal property. 74% of that revenue that we collect is in that area. Local receipts makes up 22%. We have transfers in we'll transfer in money to support capital projects. We'll transfer in money from other funds to support debt. And so that makes up 3% of the revenue, and then we have some state aid coming in about 1%. You know that, I'm sure you know or are aware that we're subject to 2.5% of the previous year's levy, plus any new growth that we can raise in taxes. In addition to that, there are other manners in which we can raise taxes, but those are specifically voted on for debt exclusions or capital exclusions. An example of a debt exclusion would be something such as the wastewater project that you were just presented with. So local receipts are an abundance of areas that you'll find local receipts. Local receipts make up 22%, as I had said. They come motor vehicle excise taxes, it'll be rooms and meals taxes, things of that nature, permitting fees, building permits, inspections, things, investment income, things like that. So this is an example or a breakout of what contains those local receipts that make up 22%. The first column is what did we anticipate or what did we budget? What did we actually collect? And then the last column just presents information of what's the percentage that we collected. Here's what we thought we were going to collect and what we collected. And let's say for motor vehicle and boat excise taxes, we collected 104% of what we thought we were going to collect. So this is just an example of all the different departments in the community and the different revenues that they assess. Here's just a different form of, if you like pie charts, here's a pie chart that shows you the exact same information.
Carol, can I ask you to go back one slide on the budget versus actual? On the investment revenue, that you're quite a bit over your, way over 500, what's that read?
So the investment.
But can you, what's the reason for the, such a large increase?
The investment revenue?
Yeah.
Well, the market has been quite difficult to put your thumb on these days, honestly.
Thank you for that, I was wondering.
So, you know, we've seen a great influx, and the treasurer collector has done an amazing job in making sure that the town receives the most investment revenue that it can. So she places particular importance on that, and that's why you see that increase.
Okay.
So expenditures, we see a 7% increase in the fiscal year 19 budgeted expenditures over what the budget was for fiscal year 18. In the preliminary results, the draft results here show that we have budget turnbacks, and what budget turnbacks are is, let's say we budget $1 million, we spent $800,000, we have a $200,000 turnback, we call it. So the turnbacks are about $900,000 this year, and this is just for the operating budget. So we also support OPEB and stabilization as part of our budget. Those items that we supported in FY19 were just a little over $3 million. The department that had the largest turnbacks is public safety at about $340,000. And then there were smaller departments, general government, which includes town administration, the town hall, and the departments within the town hall, in addition to community services and recreation and culture. Here's a snapshot of where we're ending FY19. We show you what did we bring forward as set-asides. So let's say we had open purchase orders that we call them encumbrances that we set aside. That's the first column you'll see with numbers in it. And then the appropriation is what was the voted budget, what did we expend, what did we transfer for funds, and how are we closing the balances. This is grouped by major department. It's grouped by general government, which again is town hall and all the departments that fall in town hall. Public safety is police and fire. Education is Monomoy and Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. We have the Department of Public Works. Community services is many of the departments that are over at the community center. We have culture and recreation here, which includes your recreation department, the harbor, the golf department, and then debt services, state and county assessments, and all of your insurances. This is just a pie chart in case you like to look at it that way. So long-term debt. The town increased its long-term debt in FY19 by going out into the market and selling bonds for $9.1 million. In addition to that, the town was awarded with Standard & Poor's highest rating, which is a AAA rating this year. That improved from a AA+. So with the permanent issue of the debt, we went to the market in June for. The fire station was the largest portion of that debt of about $6 million. That's the new fire station that the chief showed you information pertaining to. In May of 2018, at the town meeting authorized sewer construction of almost $25 million. In addition to that, they authorized some road projects. The town has been awarded a 0% interest rate for the state revolving loan fund for a 30-year period to support those wastewater or sewer projects. And then when we talk about debt exclusion, we'll talk about what has the town voted to exclude from that 2.5% levy increase. And the town increased the debt exclusion by $1.7 million. And most of that was to support the Saquatucket Harbor projects that were presented for you this evening. I have a chart here that shows information pertaining to debt from 2010 to June 30th of 2019. It shows you what was the beginning balance or what was the principal that was outstanding at the beginning of the fiscal year. What bonds were sold? What did the town go to market and sell bonds? What payments were made on that debt? And then finally, what was the ending balance? The town, the Board of Selectmen have some stringent policies with regard to finances of the town. Those policies pertain to reserves. They pertain to OPEB funding, which is other post-employment benefit funds. The policy of the Board of Selectmen is to maintain free cash or stabilization at no less than 7 or 8% of the general fund expenditures of each year. And I'll show you, I have, of course, another chart to show you where the town has been from 2016 to 2019. In addition to that, the town has, at town meeting of 13, the town voted to fund OPEB, or to establish an OPEB trust fund, and have funded that trust fund every year. So you'll see here, starts FY16 and ends June 30th of 2019. It shows you, if you look at the numbers on the top, I think it's easier because it's not, unfortunately, the print is a little light in the chart. But the numbers on the top show you what percentage, it says % of operating budget. And that is directly related to the board's policy pertaining to free cash and stabilization, and what the percentage that the board deems as appropriate at a minimum. The chair has asked me to speak to you about one other item this evening, and it relates to the state revolving loan fund pertaining to wastewater projects. Later this evening, the board will vote, hopefully in the affirmative, to support the state revolving loan fund at a 0% interest rate to support a large portion of the construction of phase 2. Given the current market rates, and those market rates change quite a bit they've changed quite a bit over the past year and a half, but given the current market rate, the town were to go to the market and sell the bonds, that it's, that from this, if they didn't go through the state revolving loan fund, it would probably cost the town about $5.9 million more on a 20-year note to support, in interest, to support those bonds. So that's quite a significant savings that the town is realizing by being awarded a 0% interest rate. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Carol. We have one, if I can ask you to use the mic and identify yourself.
Margaret Hinkle, 78 Pleasant Street. And my question is, what percentage of property tax revenue comes from non-residents?
Okay.
That's a very good question. I don't have the answer to that question.
Well, Chris,
Generally, it's about half.
about half? That's what yeah. Any other questions? If not, thank you, Carol. We have one last chance for questions and comments from the audience. I hope you found this interesting. We have departments that do a lot of work, and people in town, Chris and Joe, and for a town our size, I'm amazed how busy we are. And no one's talked about sharks, and so that's a good story. Moving on then to the consent agenda. Steve, I can ask you to...
Certainly. Consent agenda, vote 2018 Multiple Sclerosis Challenge from 9/6/19 to 9/8/19. Police and fire notified. B, vote Chapter 90 project request to resurface Main Street extension.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? If not, Michael?
Just on the Lower County Road project, on the procurement part of that, the county does the procurement on that, correct?
I'm going to defer to Lincoln.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Who does the procurement on the Chapter 90 requests?
Well, it depends what vendor. On this, it is a county bid that we utilize for paving and so forth. The Lower County Road, because of the complexity of it, was a standalone project that we had to procure ourselves. Most of what we generally use Chapter 90 on is done through county bid process.
So does that mean the contractor's already been picked on this job?
That is correct, yes, sir.
And who's doing that job?
I believe that is Lynch this year.
And that's determined by the county?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Move then to new business. Vote to approve a lease of 2 classrooms for the YMCA infant, toddler, and preschool classroom. One for each elementary school, I assume, is the end of that statement. Who's Chris or Scott? Is someone you're going to?
Good evening. I'm Mark Smith, Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment for the Monomoy Regional Schools. I have with me Mary Oldak, the principal at the Harwich Elementary School. So we wanted to quickly provide the board with some information. Both Harwich Elementary School and Chatham Elementary School have some additional classroom space that's currently not being utilized that we are looking to enter in a lease agreement to provide early childhood care. And we're going to talk to you a little bit about those, the two offerings. So this lease agreement comes driven from our most recent strategic plan, which the board may be aware. We ultimately came up with 4 strategic objectives. Strategic objective 3 is focused on closing achievement gaps for students within our district that have had the most persistent achievement gaps over time. And as a subset of that, one of the initiatives is to work with community partners to enhance early learning, to provide both early care and education to some of the youngest students in both towns. And then specifically an action step within that is to explore partnering with community organization so that we are not the experts in early care, so to partner with organizations that are experts in that care. That strategic plan then led to a needs assessment with the district conducted in the spring of 2019 to find out exactly what it is the communities needed and wanted in an early care and education program. I'm going to share some of the results with you from, we received 258 respondents in our survey. The first question was just around if there was enough adequate infant and toddler care available. And you can see the red are the no's and the bluish, grayish color there are the yeses. So you see a resounding no that there is not enough infant and toddler care. And then you can see while there is more preschool age children, so the preschool starts about 3, infant and toddler is 0 to 3, just for context. So you can see while there is definitely more preschool care, that's still most people do not feel that there's enough preschool options available in this area. And then we further broke that to discuss full year, full day, because if I just use our district as an example, we do offer a half-day program at the preschool level. We don't offer a full-day program, and it runs the school year. It's 180 days. So we wanted to learn a little bit more about the needs beyond a half-day program. You can see there's a resounding need for a full-day, full-year program. So the first question asks about a program that's open for infant and toddlers, starting roughly from 7:30, running till roughly till 5:30, open essentially year-round except for closing for major holidays. And the second question asked about the same program, but again for preschool-age children. You can see again there's a resounding yes in if available, would you take advantage of a preschool program that operated in that way? Then additionally, we asked a little bit to learn about any obstacles to access. So we asked questions related around financial supports that people might receive. And you can see the breakdown there of people that do receive any one of those governmental financial assistance programs. And then this summarizes that along with some of the other results to see that, again, there is a financial impact. So not only do we want to offer a program, but then affordability becomes a question as well. So we don't want to, bring a Cadillac, that's something that's going to cost you a ridiculous amount of money. We need both a quality program and an affordable program. So you can see here that of the 57 survey respondents with infants and or toddlers, almost 72% responded that the high cost of infant toddler care strains their household budget, and that about 20% of people would use some type of child care but can't afford it. And then of the 70 respondents that had preschoolers, you can see that, again, almost 76% said that the high cost was an inhibitor, as well as 10% said that they would access it, however they cannot afford it. Now, some might ask, why is there a need to focus on students at this age? And so just give a little sort of research base for this. There's actually continuously ongoing study called the Perry Preschool Project, which dates all the way back to 1962. It's one of the only long-term longitudinal studies done around the effect of preschool age students. And not only did this study investigate students through their school year, but it continues to go back to the same population of kids. And so the first chart, which is not easy to see on the graphic there, but pulls out 3 different areas, and the bluish color on the top are students that did participate in the preschool program, and the orange color is for students that did not participate in the preschool program. And so the first is around basic achievement at age 14, so you can see the major benefit to have participated in the program. The next is homework completion at age, I think it's 15, but I definitely can't see that from here. It's either 13 or 15. And again, you can see a strong benefit to those that participated in the preschool program. And then another one, which actually I found particularly interesting, was an IQ score at the age 5. And so you can see, again, a significant difference. And then again, so that's portion of the study, but what's most interesting about this study is it's gone back and checked in with these same folks. So then they've looked at age 40, how do people who participated in the preschool program versus the control group that did not. And just some of the statistics that were pulled from that the high quality preschool program benefited them by, they are significantly more likely to graduate from high school, more likely to hold a job, more likely to have higher earnings, and more likely to own a car and a home. And then they also did a return on investment for a preschool program and found that for every dollar spent, it was a $12.90 return on that investment. I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Oldak to talk about the process.
Thank you, Mark. I'm going to talk about our process that has gotten us to this point today, and also talk more specifically about how the impact on Harwich Elementary and Chatham Elementary. We started back in the fall of 2018 in September with our community forum around the strategic plan, getting input from about 100 people, and the concept of childcare, high quality, full day, full year, and also universal preschool continue to come up in those discussions. I also wanted to add that that concept has also been an integral part of our school improvement plan since the spring of 2017 as well. And we've had very stalwart support from our school council at Harwich Elementary for expanding early childhood and preschool programs. We continued by discussing this in more detail and culling that out and developing an action plan for all of our strategic plan throughout the winter with our school committee, as well as other representatives from the community. And as Mark said, we had the Family and Community Needs Survey in the spring of 2019. We then followed that up with a request for proposal. We discussed that with the school committee, and it went out on June 18th. And we, of course, followed the procurement process with that through our business office. On July 9th, we had a parent forum at Harwich Elementary, so potential partners could hear from parents and community members about their needs and wants and concerns and questions. It was incredibly well attended. We had well over 30 parents, as well as Monomoy staff and community preschools, as well as some of our potential partners there to participate in that discussion. The proposals were due in on July 16th. We did have a very quick turnaround by a subcommittee on the school committee. Our initial intent, of course, was to try to have this up and running when the school year started, so we kind of backward planned that timeline. And we presented those two partners to our school committee on July 18th. And our start dates for both of these programs, pending the appropriate approvals, will be this September to October. At Harwich Elementary, the YMCA of Cape Cod is our partner. We have 2 classrooms identified within the school. We had several locations within the school that were considered, and there were several criteria around adjacency and exits, and so we have identified 2 previous first grade classrooms, and we have had a reduction in some of our number of sections at the school. So these 2 classrooms were available with some little bit of movement. So they're at the end of the first grade hallway towards the front facade of the school. It's a 3-year lease with 2 1-year options for renewal. The income to the district, the revenue to the district is $15,000. With that also includes the cost of utilities. We also have an add-on of about $2,400 a year for our custodial service and supplies. And so the revenue from the $17,400 will come into a revolving fund at the district, and then go to offsetting the general fund. So, with the YMCA, they're providing full-day, full-year support to families. Can't emphasize that enough. It's 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., which is far more comprehensive than we're able to offer at this time, and that's what our families have said that they need. It is also, they only have 6 holidays a year, and they also have 2 professional development days. So when they say full year, it's the entire year except for 8 days. We're also really thrilled that the YMCA has committed that they don't turn away any family for financial, if they don't have the financial resources to pay. Not only do they have access to all the government vouchers that any preschool might have, they also have access to their own YMCA scholarship fund for our families. At Chatham Elementary, it's a little bit of a different profile with a partner. It's CDI Head Start. Cape Cod Child Development had been the administrator for the Head Start federal grant up until fairly recently, and they lost that role, and CDI has come in and is acting as a receiver for Head Start on Cape Cod, and they are reorganizing and taking about a 1-year transition to identify the next administrator of the Head Start federal grant here on Cape Cod. There is going to be 1 preschool classroom at Chatham. Because of the 1-year receivership, the term of the lease is only 1 year instead of 3 years like we are entering into or hope to enter into at Harwich Elementary. And so we have $9,600 a year in revenue under that that lease agreement. So Head Start serves the poorest of the poor, and so this preschool is free. In addition to being free preschool, they also provide all types of health and wellness wraparound services for the children and the families, and it'll also serve as a home base to begin to expand Head Start out into the Outer Cape. There used to be a Head Start in Chatham many years ago, and at this point in time, when Cape Cod Child Development was the administrator of the Head Start grant, the furthest out it went was Dennisport. So we're very excited to see that Head Start being extended throughout the Cape. So the approvals that are needed to make all of this happen is the school committee did vote to enter into these lease agreements with our 2 early childhood partners, the YMCA and CDI. Per our regional agreement, we need to ask the towns for their approval to, through a vote tonight, to support these leases. And then in turn, we then will submit to the Commissioner of Education, who will want to see that there was a vote and see documentation of that vote in the minutes. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, and also hope that we can move forward with this with a vote tonight. We also just got word that tonight Chatham was also voting on these leases, and they did approve it with a unanimous vote. So, are there any
Thank-
questions?
Well, thank you. I know we have one, Don, and then Ed, I'll get to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Inarguably, this is needed. I mean, this is something that most of the younger families have been talking about for years. My only question is, it's not us, it's a contractor, albeit the YMCA. The buildings are actually, the elementary schools are the property of the towns that they're located in, per the original agreement. Is there an indemnification? Do we have an insurance policy that names the town of Harwich indemnifying us for any liability?
I believe the lease speaks to that.
But we would actually have to be in receipt of an insurance policy. Does anybody have one?
The why would, so.
Scott, I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to use the microphone.
Yeah, the why does have it, and as Mark and Mary are pointing out, it's also specified in the lease that both parties have to have the requisite insurance to cover their programs.
The reason I ask that is I'd be willing to make a motion to endorse the leasing, the subletting of the building, but contingent upon receiving the actual insurance document that shows us as an indemnified party.
Yeah, understood.
That was Mr. Carpenter's Monomoy School Superintendent.
Yeah. We had divided and conquered tonight because I was over at Chatham presenting the exact same thing at their meeting. Didn't think we could get over here.
I just wanted to identify yourself for the record.
Then I am willing to make that
Okay,
motion.
well, let me, Ed had a comment.
No, I'm just gonna make a motion.
Okay, Don?
Second.
Michael, Steve? Okay,
It contingent upon receipt of the
that's the
policy naming
motion.
us as an
Is
insurer.
there a second?
I'll second it.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Put in a lot of work, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a vote to approve the issuance and details of bonds and notes for the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust loan from CWP-18-23rd and sign related closing documents. Carol, you mentioned this briefly before. You're going more detail now?
Yes, sure. The town of Harwich filed an application with the State Revolving Loan Fund to receive funding for the sewer project, for the construction phase of the sewer project. And that was approved in the affirmative. In addition to that, the town received a 0% interest rate over the life of the note, which is 30 years. The board is asked this evening, it's presented before you this evening, to vote to authorize the borrowing with the State Revolving Loan Fund. There's a very specific vote that the board will need to take that was prepared by the town's bond counsel. And I have that here with me if you don't have it in front of you.
I'm not sure I have that in front of me, but while you're walking up, any questions for Carol? Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Carol, just to nail this down, any savings is a savings, so representing taxpayers, that's of interest to all of us. But you had mentioned $5.9 million as a savings as opposed to us bonding it under our AAA rating. I'm a little mystified here. I got an email from Christy Tafori and Peter Frazier that indicate that the $11.5 million portion of it, which is what I'm thinking we're borrowing, right?
Yes, that.
14 million.
Okay, 14 million with everything wrapped in. But I mean, I understood that was 3.1 million savings. It wasn't until you got to the total of the two contracts that you got to a 5.9.
So I was talking about when I gave you the number of $5.9 million. Number one, it's over 20 years and not 30 years.
Okay.
Number two, it is the entire construction phase of the project.
So it's the whole project.
Yes, it wasn't just pertaining to this portion of that.
Anything else, Don? Any other questions for Carol? Ed, you care to make a motion?
Oh. Carol, there's this document, can I make the motion to approve it by reference, or do I need to read the whole thing into the record?
I think you can approve it by reference.
Okay, I move that we approve the issuance of bonds for the town wastewater project as laid out in a document titled Vote of the Board of Selectmen and dated August 12th, 2019.
I'll second that.
Second. Any more discussion? Michael?
Can we get a copy of that emailed to us?
Sure.
Please?
Okay. Chris, did you have a comment?
Make a copy of the.
Okay. We've had a motion and a second. No other discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, so abstained. 4-4, Chris, and 1 absent.
If I would, I'm going to pass this down to our secretary because he's the one that has to sign it.
Okay.
Clerk. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Thanks for that.
Carol?
If it would be okay, the treasurer collector has a number of documents that the board will need to sign. However, next on your agenda is the refunding of the police construction bonds, and so we'd like to do that all together, if that's okay.
That's okay. Because I don't see her here, but I'm sure she wants to, yeah, okay, and Amy, you want to get this going quickly, right? So, sorry, folks, but
So I should put this aside.
we always have pressure to sign these the same night, so we can do that.
So we take it
Moving
on.
on to the, which item is that, Carol?
It's C.
It's B and C, so the next one is C items.
So we voted on B, so
I'm
we got to
assuming you
vote.
have one of
we gotta
those.
vote on
Oh, yeah, C, I'm sorry,
Need to vote on C.
I'm rushing too fast. Next one is the vote. The approval and issuance of detailed funding bonds to refund the town's outstanding bonds dated February 15, 2009, and sign related closing documents.
I can't believe bond counsel doesn't have something more extensive than this.
Mr. Chairman, I have another document that bond counsel has prepared for a specific vote from the board.
If you're too friendly with the bond council, Carol. I assume we can also do this by reference, but before we get there, is there any questions for Carol regarding this?
Just some brief information for the board. The town refunded or refinanced some bonds that were eligible for the police construction, or the police station construction. The town received 10 bids. The winning bid was at 1.09% interest, which is fabulous. The savings to the town over the next 10 years is just under $500,000 in interest cost. And so if the board so chooses to authorize this refunding, then I would ask that, in summary, you may decide to approve that.
Thank you, Carol.
Vote.
If there's no questions, Steve?
Just, thanks again. I know I said it before when you brought it to us, but thanks for, seeing that this was a good refunding opportunity for the town.
Ed, I assume you can do this by reference again?
Sure. I move that we approve the issuance of bonds to refund the police station construction bonds as spelled out in a document provided by the bond council titled Vote on the Board of the Board of Selectmen and dated August 12th, 2019.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and second. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
And again,
We'll
down
pass
to
this down to,
the board clerk.
thank you, Carol. Next on our agenda is item D, request for approval of one-day alcohol license permit for the Captain's Row Group. The event will be held at the Harwich Cultural Center on August 27th, from 5 p.m. till 7 p.m., serving beer and wine only. Any discussion? Michael?
I move that we approve the request for approval of a one-day alcohol license permit for Captain's Row Group. The event will be held at the Harwich Cultural Center, 8/27/19, from 5 to 7.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, Chris, so we have that. Next one, E, is request for approval of one-day alcohol license permit for the Children's Center.
Mr. Chair? The Children's Center is a constituent element of HESH, and
So
I'm
you
the
can-
Vice President
you
of HESH, and I
recruit-
am recusing
Okay.
myself from that.
So we'll put that on the record, Don, thank you. The event will be held at the Harwich Cultural Center on November 3rd this year from 2 to 8 p.m., serving beer and wine. Only request to waive the $400 room rental fee. Is there a
Mr. Chair,
motion?
I move that we approve providing a temporary liquor license to the Children's Center for November 3rd, 2019, at the Harwich Cultural Center from 2 to 8 p.m., beer and wine only, and waiving the $400 rental fee for their program.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Hey,
Just a
Michael?
question. Maybe Caroline can answer. Are we covering our costs for cleanup, maintenance, anything by giving that room? And do you have a recommendation on the waiving of the fee?
Thank you. So the Cultural Center, which you're all invited to also, 204 Sisson Road, please stop by. We're almost completely full. We have great artisans and people using, as well as some nonprofit organizations. But we have one custodian who works 19 hours, so excellent at helping to stay and help us clean up as well.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Michael.
Michael, you have a follow-up?
The follow-up is, we actually have a couple of requests for that, so I think at some point, maybe we should come up with a policy, or at least get your thoughts on giving that room. We did have some opposition at town meeting this year to spending any money there, and the board had asked for a 5-year trial to try and cover its costs. So if we continue to waive fees and not cover our costs, I think 5 years from now, we're gonna have a strong objection at town meeting.
Sure, we would love to. I know Erica has worked tirelessly on putting together some of the financial information for you. And as I said, we're almost completely full. We have one small studio left, but we rent out the additional rooms, the auditorium and things like that, but would be happy to put that together and maybe come up with a policy for the board as well.
Okay, good. Ed?
And because I missed doing this earlier under announcements, you also, I understand, have a wonderful concert series Thursday evenings, sponsored by the Harwich Cranberry Festival, starting at 6:30. This week's group is a Latin Roots band, and the following Thursday, the last of the concert series, will be an Irish group. So I urge you all to attend.
Carol, I think you're winning this argument. Carol, the next time we'll be sure we identify you individually to talk. Next on the agenda is, Michael?
Did we call the vote? All in favor?
We didn't, no, we didn't call a vote, did we? Sorry, moved too fast. All in favor?
Aye.
And Don, you recused yourself on this one.
Wait, but, yeah, for this, I thought we were on the WIC.
No, not yet.
Still on the
Not yet.
children, so.
So
We're
it's
moving
4-0. Next is request a room rental fee of $100 for the Outer Cape WIC program. Excuse me. Motion request is to waive that fee. Michael?
I move that we approve the request to waive the room rental fee of $100 for the Outer Cape WIC program for an event held at 9/26/19 at the Harwich Cultural Center.
Second. Is there a second? Any discussion?
Well,
Ed?
as it's administered by Outer Cape Health.
We need to recuse
You
ourselves.
and I need to recuse ourselves as two of the officers.
We have to stop doing so much outside stuff.
So we'll recuse ourselves and
The clerk can call the vote.
Yeah, clerk has to.
Steve?
No, you call for the vote.
All in favor?
unanimous for the
What
two
an admirable
participating
job.
members.
Three members.
Thank you so much.
0-2.
Okay, good. Thank you, Ed, for reminding me of that. Next on the agenda, I see we have people here, is the Caleb Chase Trustee Revision of Policies. Paul, are you going to present this to us, or have you delegated this?
Mr. Chairman and the members of the board, pleasure to be here today representing the Caleb Chase trustees. Back in 1904, Caleb Chase, one of the town's great benefactors, left $10,000 in his will to be distributed to, as the selectmen saw fit, to those people who were in need. And since that time, and through several iterations at the town meeting, the selectmen created a board of trustees, and we've continued to manage that $10,000, distributing about $5,000 to $10,000 annually to the town for them to then, in fact, give out for people who are in need. And it's kind of boiled down to basically people who are having difficulty paying utility bills come to the town, and the town has created some policies, one of which says that a family can receive one award, a maximum of $700 now, for a lifetime. The Board of Trustees were of the opinion that we generate this money every year. By the way, there's about $500,000 in that account now that was $10,000. And we generate around $11,000 or $12,000 a year. And I met with Emily Mitchell with the Council on Aging, who has kind of taken over the administrative aspects of selecting or interviewing people and determining sufficient need. And the Board of Trustees was interested in trying to make several changes to those policies so that we can, in fact, better utilize and expand the use of those funds that are generated. So in meeting with Emily and her staff, and she submitted several suggestions to us. The board met last month or so, reviewed those, came back with some changes, and she and I have met and kind of come to a general agreement, and we've submitted those to the board in a letter that I've drafted that summarizes a few places that we would like to change the current policy in order for more people to benefit from these Caleb Chase funds. And the three major changes that we're recommending to increase the grant from $700 to all of $800, and also to expand the application of the funds to beyond just utility bills, to include other payments such as rent, security deposits, cord wood supplies for heating, medical payments, and so forth. So we've come up with a list of permitted uses of the funds and caps for those various uses. And we would also like to change the change from a once per lifetime to once every 3 years, and make that dependent upon the applicant to demonstrate that they haven't been recipients of this more than once every 3 years. So that's the general proposal. Emily is comfortable with these and thinks it will help. Last year, the town, we used to give about $10,000 to the town, and rarely was anything at that level sought. And so we decided to hold or retain some of those funds to reinvest. And We've been giving around $5,000 or $6,000 out of the funds every year to the town. And last year, I think fiscal year, the actual grants were a total of about $6,500, which is higher than it has been. So it may be growing a bit, but we think with this program, expanded the policies, will allow us to get more money out into the hands of those folks that are in need. So we would respectfully request your affirmative action on those policy changes.
Thank you. Michael?
I move that we approve the revision to policies presented by Caleb Chase trustees.
Second.
Dated July 25th, 2019.
Yes.
Nice presentation, and I know we see the applicants, and there's always, no one questions the need that's been presented by Emily's predecessors, and so, job well done.
Jack, Larry, I know probably in 2007, 2008, when the economy was not doing well, I know we were using the funds fully and needing to go elsewhere to find additional assistance. And one of the things we did do was create a Caleb Chase fund that people could donate into,
Yes.
separate and apart. And I'm wondering what's the status of that?
Well, I think that was done for a couple of years in terms of the tax collector's department placed a checkbox or whatever on the town property bills that went out, and they did receive some monies back from that. I understand, but that has now been suspended. I think that just was in effect for a couple of years at most. And I think now there still is a ability for town employees to donate some amount of their weekly or bi-monthly, whatever it is, salary. And some funds are collected in that fashion. And if I'm correct, Carol, I think those funds go into a separate fund. They don't come to the Caleb Chase Fund.
No. Yeah.
However, I did earlier, actually last year, Carol and I got together because there was quite a bit of money that had accumulated over time, either through excess monies that we had given to the town or through this contributions from the town taxpayers. And Carol did send the fund a check for $40,000. I don't know if it came out of her pay or whether it was funds. In any event, we got a check for $40,000 from the town, which we reintroduced to the trust itself. But to answer your question, I think all of those funds at this point have ceased to, basically ceased to exist.
Don?
Yeah, this is just a kind of clarification, Paul.
Yes.
For the public, so they fully understand it. This is basically an endowment fund. It's not coming out of the town's pockets. You're administering it, you're recommending disbursements as to certain criteria, but it's separate and apart from the town budget.
That's correct. The money was, as I say, left in a testamentary gift, and money has stayed in that trust, and over the years, various boards have invested those funds, and today it's, as I say, about $500,000.
Thank you. If no more discussion, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Another unanimous vote. Committee appointments for approval.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dome.
Since I got to put the dates on, I move that we approve the committee appointments as listed in the agenda packet with the expirations as indicated.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Aye, go ahead, Ed.
I think we should do these individually.
Okay. We have a motion now. We need to vote on that and vote to approve or disapprove that.
Second.
then.
Oh.
Well, no, we have to take, we
Take a vote on
we have to take a vote,
I
we
made
have,
a motion.
we have to take a vote on the original one, and take action on that before we can reconsider. All in favor of the
Aye.
motion?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. We'll do it individually. First one, Ed, you want to read these, right? I can.
Either.
I will. First one is Christopher Murphy, Board of Appeals, term to expire 6/30/20, as an alternate member.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
B is Charles Barnes, Harwich Cultural Council, term to expire June 30, 21, as a full member.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
C is Angela McNamara, Harwichport Noise Containment Committee, term to expire 12/31 next year, a full resident.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Holly Tavano, Youth Services, term to expire June 30, 2020, as a full member.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sarah Powell, Harwichport Noise Containment Committee, term to expire December 31st,
Second.
As a full business member.
as a full business member. All in favor?
Aye.
And just comment on that, Mike or Don, how many does that put on our noise,
6.
6?
And we
And-
need one more?
We need one
One
more.
more.
One more from the business community.
To fill
Okay.
it out.
Just, how is our parking committee doing, which is sort of same area?
Well, they have an upcoming meeting.
Okay, so they're full though?
They're full. No,
Okay.
we have one more.
One more,
One more,
okay.
one more vacancy on that as well.
Okay.
Also from the business community.
Okay. To reiterate that, then, we have one for the parking, one for the noise, each from the business community that we're asking for people to volunteer. Next one is Sarah Powell.
Nope.
I did that. James Duncanberry, I see him here as Planning Board, term to expire June 30, 2020, as a full member.
I'll second that.
And the last one is Sandra Hall, Community Preservation.
Yeah, vote on it.
vote.
He
We'll
wanted
vote.
to do them separately.
Sorry. We need to vote on Duncanberry. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
It could get worse, folks. This is becoming a long night. Sandra Hall, Community Preservation Committee, term to expire 6/30/22.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
I'm opposed as well, so that one's a 3-2. Don?
Now that you're taking the vote, I think it's somewhat reprehensible that you're doing it this way, that you gave no notice. This was changed on the agenda for the first time in years, especially by the gentleman next to me who is normally putting this on the consent agenda, with no rationale given whatsoever.
Okay, but you've been asking for all this always to be put
With
on the
no
consent.
rationale whatsoever, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Michael?
I just make a comment as well. It is interesting to me as well that now we have a second selectman sitting in the agenda meetings with the town administrator. Our vice chair, Ed McManus. We have a committee for appointments for the interview committee, which we have to post the meetings. We have to take minutes for the meetings. But your agenda meetings now have turned into the chair and the vice chair and the town administrator and whoever else is there. And this is the first time in 4+ years that this has been done differently. And it's interesting that the no votes, there was 0 conversation. And hats off to Sandra Hall for the amount of work she has done for this town. And I just will apologize for this being sandbagged after a agenda meeting.
Mr.
Well-
Chair, I would also say that if that practice continues, we need to make sure that we post for the agenda meeting and we can all sit in. Because obviously there are deliberations happening that shouldn't have, because there was no good excuse at all. It just was me. Everybody had their vote already figured out.
That's actually incorrect. We had no discussion on this whatsoever at any of our meetings. We will rectify that, and I've asked Ed not to join us in the agenda, but that's an incorrect statement. I don't know how to state that further.
I'll second that.
My only comment, I agree with Sandra how she's done a lot for the community. As a Community Preservation Committee member, those members come, except for the two Selectmen's members, come from different committees in town, whether it be conservation or rec or real estate and open space. So they all come with a vested interest in promoting their view. In my opinion, the Selectmen's, we have two Selectmen's appointees on this committee. That person should be completely unbiased and be impartial. And with and I applaud all the work that Sandra's done, I often find, coming from a point of view that I'd like to be more open-minded. So that's my discussion point. But I will reiterate that this never came up as a discussion, so that comment is incorrect. Michael?
I just respectfully disagree.
Okay.
There was no discussion tonight, was my point,
And I try to give my view at least.
after the fact.
Okay. Moving on then, discussion with planning board interaction referring the West Harwich Route 28 Captain's Row corridor to Cape Cod Commission as district of critical planning concern or other zoning concepts as possible, vote on steps. And we brought this, we had several members wanted to bring this in front, and we had, I'm sure, some people in the audience as well. I will reiterate that the primary committee involved with this is a planning board. We're weighing in to start this discussion. They've talked about it before, and we want to be sure we proceed with this. Someone want to lead this discussion? Don, is you?
Well, yeah, I'd actually asked for it to be on, and I kind of thought that that's the direction where our board was going. Any motion that I was going to make when it was more vague was going to be to refer it to the planning board to flesh out what we were discussing. I want to point out a couple of things. The first thing is that the prior debate at the planning board level for the so-called dollar store in West Harwich was a choice between saving a historic building or leveling it and putting up basically a box store in its place. They withdrew their application, but it was done without prejudice, so they could reapply again. My concern is that that's a separate and distinct argument and discussion from when their demolition delay is up. That's going to be up in mid-September. There is not a lot of time here, and regardless of what the end conclusion is, and by the way, DCPCs can be put in for a number of things, and the discussion I had up at the commission when I was there for the wastewater and happened to have the executive director in front of me is, are you still in the DCPC game? The answer was yes. Would you be willing to do something to protect this for historic purposes? And she said yes, and I would imagine economic purposes would be another rationale for doing it. Were that to occur, the thing under our current state law that's vexing for all of this is you change a zoning bylaw locally and it gets grandfathered, because that's the way the state of Massachusetts operates. When you're operating under DCPC, everything goes away. There's a moratorium until you can develop whatever regulations it is that you are looking to move forward with, and you can actually come up with some coherent thoughts that will cover everything and that we do cooperatively together, but there's no grandfathering. It starts from that day forward for whatever it is we as a community want to do. I'm afraid of a binary decision being made somewhere in October where the choice at the planning board level is going to be a hole in the ground or a box store, because there is nothing going to be stopping them if they own the property from leveling it after mid-September.
Any other comments? If my memory, Don, maybe help me out. My memory is correct on this, or Eastham recently did that on the Route 6 corridor to put it on the DCPC for a year. while they discuss the opportunities and develop the plan. So we
That's
have
really the point.
we have a precedent for doing it in a neighboring town.
This was one of those joined circles where I was trying to figure out, okay, how do we get into the circle to have a discussion?
Right.
The only purpose for this originally, until we started adding extra words, was to initiate a discussion so it would come above board in public to discuss whether cooperatively we could ask the planning board if they could develop something that we could support and submit it. And that's still where my heart is going, is that, that we're going to wind up with blotches in the Route 28 corridor, and it's going to make it ridiculous to even try to save any of it because it's going to wind up being half developed. As long as we have the time to be able to have a coherent discussion, that's what this is really about.
Okay.
So,
Steve?
this is the opportunity, Don, to try to buy us that time? Is that by following this procedure?
Yeah, I was hoping to make a motion to refer it to the planning board, to have them come back to us with their recommendation, understanding all of what I just said, that they could, irrespective of not having a site plan filed, they could level the building after September. So we really need to have the discussion now to be able to get to that point. I'm not trying to usurp the planning board's responsibilities or authorities in this, and frankly, we're gonna need their help because any referral we make would only be strengthened if it was coming from a regulatory body and the Board of Selectmen rather than one or the other.
Ed?
So you indicated you were hoping to make that. Do you feel you can't make that?
No,
Okay.
I'm waiting for everybody to have their say.
Well, you know, I'm fully supporting you doing that. And
Don, you want to make a
Okay,
motion?
I'd like to make a motion that it's the position of the Board of Selectmen that we would like to refer a potential DCPC in West Harwich for them to have discussion and get back to us in joint session about what their recommendation might be.
There a second?
I'll second that.
More discussion? Michael, you have?
Yeah, just conversation. You know, I think that a lot of people in the room tonight, based on the
We'll give them a chance.
based
to,
on the agenda, yeah. So I'd like to hear if anyone else would like to
Yeah.
speak on this. But given the agenda and with the planning board interaction, I don't believe the planning board was ever invited tonight. So maybe somebody could explain why we put that on the agenda, but didn't ask them to come tonight, so we could make a decision tonight.
Well, when, Don approached me, as all selectmen do for agenda items, and as I think Don explained, we're concerned about something happening before planning board happens, can get together and meet. So, and the motion, as I understand it, is a recommendation to send it back to the planning board. We're not excluding them from them, we're actually just bringing them back in with, to try to take some action.
Okay.
Steve?
I mean, I actually did speak with one of the planning board members today about this, and the main concern is what I hope, and I think Don is addressing, which is that planning board is included in this process, that they have a chance to be part of the deliberative process in this. So if that's where we're headed,
Absolutely.
as long as they're part of this, I'm okay
Yeah,
with
and
it.
that was our discussion from
We're
the very
sending it back to
beginning.
them and urging them to take an action. But not without, not us sending it out to the county.
To restate what's already been said, the goal of this is to delay action for some time.
Yeah, and to address the concerns of many people here in the room.
Does anyone care to comment on this discussion?
Gosh, I just happened to be next to the microphone. Imagine that, Duncan Berry, 37 Route 28. Yes, I would like to encourage you all to make sure that this gets referred, however it goes, whether to the planning board or directly to the Cape Cod Commission. It's my understanding that Eastham, it was the Board of Selectmen that made the referral.
Yes.
So I think you guys have the authority to do that tonight. I just wanted to encourage you to act swiftly because of the ticking clock, and for the help of, for the sake of maybe a little more clarity too, is that the DCPC in the language of the Cape Cod Commission is a powerful planning tool that allows a town to impose a moratorium or time out on certain types of development or activities in a specified area, to plan for and adopt special rules and regulations that will protect, among other things, cultural, architectural, archaeological, historic, economic, or recreational sources or values of regional, statewide, and national significance. I think this is a no-brainer. I would love to see you guys make the referral tonight. I don't know if that's going to possibly happen. I think I've just been voted on to the planning board. I know I don't have a vote in that, so I would really like to, like, have it come clear here, because I think this is a great opportunity to do what zoning can't always do with an aesthetic kind of component, and what you can't do with a historic district, which becomes kind of subjective. This provides a really great tool. Also, thanks to Don for making this happen, and I would also like to say this was a great meeting tonight. It was like a mini town meeting. I learned so much, and thank you all.
Ed, then Don.
Yeah, Duncan actually raises an interesting point. When we actually do make the referral, we just don't say we want to refer Route 28 West Harwich to the Cape Cod Commission. There has to be a more precise definition of the area, and there also needs to be some rationale. And so before we vote on the amendment or the motion, if we could add to it and direct staff to prepare appropriate documents to support the referral.
I accept that as part of the motion.
Yeah, is there, to address Duncan's concern on the timing factor of this, go ahead. You have an answer, I can see.
Yes, I did want to speak to that. Duncan, you know where my heart is. We've been talking about the Route 28 corridor and how it's just going to go poof for probably 2 or 3 years now. The concern I have, first of all, it's not agendaed in a way that would allow us to make that referral tonight, even if we did have documentation. Right. So that's the first thought. The second thought is the driving factor here is the demolition delay. We still have that time, because they are not allowed to just go out tomorrow thinking, well, gosh, if those guys are going to vote to refer this, let's take a bulldozer out there and flatten the place. That can't happen. It shouldn't happen, because legally they're not entitled to have it happen. I think that we can do this the right way. I mean, with the utmost urgency. I'm pretty sure the planning board understands that when Jim was back and forth and back.
He's back there.
I know, I can see him in the back. We had a discussion about, what was that, about 4 weeks ago, Jim? With him and one of his other members about what this might look like. But again, it's like a coming out party. You have to say it publicly somewhere, because you can't just go to the commission through a back door. It has to be voted. And that means that it has to be vetted. And that means that we have to have something in writing, which is what Mr. McManus was saying. We can't just say, we want to protect something, we don't know what it is, but we're going to send it up there and we'll start the clock. So with all those things put together, I am relatively confident that if we state the urgency that we feel that this enjoys, we refer it to the planning board, and they're not going to take months to take this up. We're asking them, we're referring it to, but it would be an egregious error on our part to usurp their authority and not count them as partners, because they really are partners in this. The Six Ponds District, where I was on the planning board, when that happened, that was a cooperative venture with the planning board and the board of selectmen. I think it's really important that we continue doing that, because on the receiving end, the commission, which has to accept this referral, looks at who it is who made it. And if it's a regulatory board and it's a board of selectmen, that means a whole heck of a lot more than it's either one or the other. And you have my promise that there's an urgency to this. Everybody sitting up here understands there's an urgency.
Ed?
When's the schedule of the next planning board meeting that this could be taken up at?
I think it's tomorrow night.
Well, it's not.
It's not on the
agenda for that.
No, it's not.
So it's sometime beginning of September?
I believe it's the beginning of September, and the demolition delay expires September 20th, 18th, something like that?
Mid-month, yeah.
So it has to be done that one, and then bounce back here. So,
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we do have a motion.
Do we have at least one planning board member, is it? I'm hoping this doesn't feel like a homework assignment, that we're trying to do this in a way that
Michael,
gets us both in the same room.
I don't see how you can ask a single member of a board a question tonight. You can't.
I
mean,
wasn't asking that, I was like, is it possible
that's a question.
tomorrow to discuss
I-
having another meeting?
I think, Don, we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead with it.
I would urge them to have that discussion tomorrow, though.
Well, they've heard you on that. That's our vote tonight, so urge them to have that discussion.
No, I don't mean about the DCPC, I
Oh.
mean about scheduling, if
Okay.
they need to, scheduling an additional meeting. They
Okay.
cannot act on this tomorrow.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Carried. Old business, brush wave fee date of August 12th, 19 extension. Discuss and possible votes.
Well, that was the issue.
Michael?
Very observant.
I'm gonna make a motion. I move that we extend the, where is it? The brush wave fee date from 8/12/19 to 8/19/19.
Is there a second? I'm getting some pressure to get these signed while we're meeting.
Yeah, I second.
Is there a second?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
How about discussion?
Aye.
No.
No.
Okay, aye.
Next on the agenda is the budget warrant timeline fiscal year 2020. Potential articles and assigned to committees and department by law charter review committee to come in and discuss. Is there any comment on this one?
I had one. I think it's on the March 2nd date that I seem to be focused on. It
Okay.
says, signed final warrant. We've already discussed that we make changes up until it goes to print, or
Right.
can make
We
changes.
can make
Until
changes.
it goes up to print.
Yeah.
So why final warrant in bold underlined?
I didn't catch that, Michael. It's,
I don't have that with me.
Yeah, that's 2 months before annual meeting.
It says, Monday, March 2nd, 2020, vote to sign final annual town meeting warrant.
I would like to rethink that, because we did discuss it and decided that we didn't want to have that statement in there to make it, to give us, seems to block any further discussion. Chris, you have some other language that would work?
I mean, I
Yeah.
think we could take the word final out. I think
take
that
it
was
out.
just a clerical oversight that we left it in.
Let's take the,
The
okay.
calendar, can I
Yeah,
see
the
it?
point of, I thought tonight though, was on your calendar for the topic for this evening
Right.
is, are there any items that the board wants to start to consider to put on for the annual town meeting?
And does anyone have something tonight? I don't myself. We haven't got, I haven't given that enough thought, I guess. Michael?
I haven't given any thought, but while we're on the topic of town meetings, I still keep seeing things that say fall town meeting. Has this board had a conversation about a fall town meeting?
We have not yet.
So, for the public, there is no plan for a fall town meeting right now?
It's only been in discussion, it's very tentatively, if we move ahead with the DHY sewer plant, we may request a fall town meeting, but we haven't got that discussion in any formal way yet.
I thought 2 weeks ago we determined that we were not going to be ready for a fall town meeting, and DHY wasn't even nearly that close.
You're correct with that, but I can only be honest and say that in our DHY meetings, it's always been a dialogue with the other towns. We haven't finalized that decision yet.
Mr. Chair?
Don?
Now I'm confused. We do not have a fall town meeting. And I'm looking at it here. The original wording of Article 14 in the 2018 annual town meeting is that Phase 2 of the Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan requires design and construction of a watershed collection system. In fiscal 18, the design dollars in our intermunicipal agreement with Chatham were funded. The fiscal 19 request includes the actual construction costs of the collection systems, also including the tie-in costs with Chatham and their pump station and piping for their treatment facility. This will fully implement Phase 2 of the regulatory required plan. If that's the wording for that, and we do not have a fall town meeting, I can't find myself voting for any further contract until we go back to town meeting to give us the money to fully implement that phase. We borrowed money to do that. The language on the town meeting warrant said we were going to. We have never, unless this was an option 1, option 2, which it wasn't, we have never gone to town meeting, got money, and then found out when we got bids that we could not do something, and then decided, well, we're gonna do something, but not everything. That's not what the warrant article said, that's not what the borrowing was for. And the people that go to town meeting have every right to opine on this and say whether they're willing to give us more money to finish it or not. But this puts us in a bind. We're not gonna have a fall town meeting, then we're waiting until May, we're gonna be sitting on the contract then.
Any other comments on that?
Just
Chris?
from the discussions of the DHY meetings, I mean, the other 2 towns are planning on going, you know, at a fall annual meeting to effectuate the special legislation. We anticipate the special legislation is gonna be through the process and is probably signed by the governor maybe as early as the end of August. So then there's really no reason why we would not be able to do a DHY agreement. So if we wanted to time with the other boards, I think a fall special would be kind of needed on our part because some
Michael?
towns have an annual.
Just like to recommend we agenda that and have a full conversation about it.
Agreed. We'll bring that back because we need to have it, because there's some, as everyone's pointing out, there's some moving pieces. Don raises one. The other one is it's uncertain yet where the State House will be on the spatial legislation. If that doesn't come back, then that calls it off too.
It's that plus 45, that's our concern, because you can't schedule it presupposing anything, so it's that plus 45 days because that's what it takes.
Okay, we'll bring that back as an agenda item. Town administrators' goals and objectives. What I've done is, while I signed this, is I've put in, we've had a couple go-arounds with the goals and objectives. I tried to incorporate at least most of your comments into these suggestions. I've tried to make them specific so they're real. I think the one that we'll probably have the most discussion on, and I'm trying to look for my notes here, is the too big a pile of paper. I got one more to do with these. And that has to do with the financial goal where I ended up to try to give us some leeway is having a goal of having it level funded or up to 2% if we as a board approve some changes on that. Now, I know I've gotten both sides. I know, Chris, you sent me a document thinking that 2% is unrealistically low. I know there's sentiment on the board that we could do better than that. What I've tried to do is to push us that way and not be too pie in the sky, that we have a goal that we can meet. I've also asked, by the way, for Chris to bring back to us scenarios of what happens if a level funded, say 2%, maybe a 3% fund, what we do for revenues and what we'd have to do for cuts. Because in some ways, I think we passed, well, let me say it differently. As a board, we need to decide if we're not going to do things, if we're going to keep a budget.
One more. He's going to sign that one.
I'm going to stop talking so I can sign this thing so you can get home. I'll ask for, I think we get those scenarios, we can discuss very specifically what action we have to take to make a particular level of funding. So with that, I'll turn it over for comments. Chris, you want to start?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I know that in some of the discussions, I have been putting together some materials to kind of show where we compare to other
Sorry.
communities. And also, as you alluded to, kind of the scenario of what happens if we were to level fund. Level fund, in my opinion, would be to not utilize Proposition 2.5. That would actually have a detrimental effect of not allowing for the town to raise about $1 million to offset obligations. So I will put those scenarios together. I was actually working on that today. Have not made as much progress as I would have liked. Certainly, I wouldn't have had that ready for tonight anyway. But I will put those scenarios together and kind of show the board what the ramifications of a 0, what a 2%, and what a 3.5% could be.
Specifically, what I'm hoping we get is almost a line item idea of what action we'd have to take to make a certain level of budget. Because then it's up to us to make the hard decisions on either we spend the money or we don't, and then live with that. So, Michael?
Yeah, I'd like to request that Carol Capola is involved in this, because our budget has gone up so significantly in the past 6 years that it's hard for me to believe that you can't find any money. And I'm thinking that back to town meeting, we almost got a no vote on the budget. For whatever reason, we all can come up with why it was almost a no vote. The no vote is because people have lost confidence, including this board member. I would love to see our finance director and her opinion, not a directive from the town administrator, on what we can actually do with the budget.
Well, I fully agree with that, and I almost take that as a granted. As finance director, she has to be involved with these discussions, but we'll follow up, Michael, and be sure that,
Yeah, I have no problem.
We'll do
I have
that.
no problem working with Carol.
We'll do that. Any other comments on the goals and objectives? What I did try to do, I think the only significant action I took since your last review is I did add a numerical weight to the items, and more heavily weighted some items I thought as a board were critical. Finance is one, communication I weighted heavier than other items. Don, I know that was a concern you had, but if not, if there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion. Don?
I'm not going to make a motion. I am going to, since all the discussion seems to have ended. To me, this looks like putting paint on a rotting house. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, roughly the same goals and objectives have been in play for a number of years. And until we address what's been happening, I refuse to vote for any new goals and objectives. And we took a flyer on that at the executive session. And if we start holding people accountable for them, then I'll be willing to look at them. But if they're just words. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're hollow words. And as I said, they're kind of like putting paint on a rotting building to obscure the fact that it's rotting.
Okay. Anything good, Michael?
I may as well throw my 2 cents in. Couldn't agree more with Don. I think he hit the nail on the head. For 4+ years I've been doing this. 4+ years, you have 5 different board members do a spreadsheet, and this year's result was 29, 49, 60-something, 80-something, and then a 99. I don't see the point. I thank you, Larry, for putting it together and as much time as you put into working on it. I really appreciate it. I've done it in the past, so I know what it is. But I believe our current town administrator doesn't care what the goals and objectives are. And I believe we get back half an effort at best. And I feel like I'm wasting my time voting on this and doing the score. I have no confidence left in him whatsoever.
Well, thank you, Mike. I mean, that's a statement. Nevertheless, we need to move ahead with our goals. And then that's a discussion we continue on in a lot of different formats. But Steve?
Make a motion to accept the goals and objectives as presented.
Second?
Second.
No more discussion. Michael?
I'm just going to point out to the public that they really need to start paying attention to what's going on. Because the town administrator, depending on who's talking, you watch his face, you watch his language, you watch his smirks, he knows he has 3 votes, and he knows he can do whatever he wants. So I'd ask the public to really start paying attention to the meetings.
I'll take a minor exception to that, only that there's no such thing as 3 votes. I know for me, I'm taking each item as they come. And I want to start on this, and the goal was, of the objectives, and I agree with you, we haven't done as good a job we can holding an account for it. I've tried to put in enough measures to give us the measures, to do that, and the work to move forward. It's not well, enough said. I'll take exception to that, but all in favor?
Aye.
I'm an aye because we have to, I think, something down, and now our job is to move forward and get into change. All opposed?
Aye.
Yeah, 3-2 vote.
Pointless.
Okay, next item is the staffing plans.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the Town Administrator's report, I was asked to follow up on a couple of items. Just due to the late hour, I'm just going to kind of abbreviate. There were 4 items in total that I was asked to comment on. One was at the Selectmen's office, Town Administrator's office. We've had a person out for an extended period. We do hope that that person comes back. We did put together a plan, which the board had voted on, to finance through the Finance Reserve Fund for up to 3 months, and then we'll reevaluate at that point. We have brought on a person to be a temporary part-time person to help out in the office, particularly with Sandy's retirement. The next is on community development. That was actually part of the executive session, so that was actually already commented upon. On the Finance Committee secretarial support issue, we did have an applicant, Dana DaCosta. The board did not vote the waiver of the special municipal employee designation. He has subsequently withdrawn from consideration, so we will advertise. We did find someone to kind of temporarily take some minutes. That person is a skilled person, but it is temporary. They are actually found employment elsewhere, so they will be departing the area, I think at the middle to end of September. And then on the DPW part-time position, Mr. Hooper is here. Dana DaCosta was hired. It's not at all unusual that we put an ad out. If no one responds to that ad and then people apply after the fact, that we do give them consideration for application. That process was followed. Mr. Dana DaCosta was hired under a part-time position. Due to other staffing concerns, we have some issues in terms of staff availability, so he has been working additional hours. The intent is that he goes back to the part-time that he was originally hired for, and those staffing concerns subside. And I believe the last one was, it was alleged that I had hired somebody for the treasure chest. We had not been able to secure someone to cover that. I was doing that out of seasonal. We only have 6 out of the 10 seasonal spots filled. And the board, I think, heard pretty compelling testimony, if you would, from the gentleman that runs the treasure chest about the abusive behavior of some people that go there, and he was asking the board for some consideration. I took it that the board wanted me to try to get some assistance for the treasure chest committee, so I did ask Mr. Hooper to see if he could fill a spot using the seasonal employees this year until we can formally put it into the FY21 budget.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Michael?
Unfortunately, I think this is how we're going to have to do business now, but I'm going to read a statement, ask some questions, Larry, and I will forward you an email later with the actual questions so we can get some actual answers, because this memo says nothing. Start with the treasure chest. We had a very long conversation as a board about the treasure chest. I left that meeting with 0 questions about what the board wanted to do, because the board said, let's table it. It was even brought up talking about an employee, and the board agreed to bring it back, not to give Chris the leeway to hire someone because there was an allegation of somebody threatening the gate guard. I've spoken to some of the treasure chest volunteers, and they're all quite insulted that we're talking about hiring somebody now after they've given countless hours at the treasure chest. And this treasure chest has come up several times over the last 1.5 to 2 years. And maybe it's time that we start talking about a long-term plan, since it was supposed to be no cost to the residents and a volunteer-run program. So that is a board's decision, in my opinion, not a Chris decision, and I would ask that we bring back the treasure chest as a conversation, rather than have seasonal help hired to go over there. And if we have, if we're operating without the seasonal help, maybe we should relook at the DPW budget, and maybe there's some positions that we don't need. Second, the Dana DaCosta, great employee, and this isn't about Dana DaCosta, it's about process. An ad was run in March. I still haven't seen the ad, but I've asked for it 4 times. I'll ask again in an email. I'd like to see the ad and what the ad was for. I have the Munis report on the employee's hours. There's only been 3 weeks that he's actually worked 40 hours, and then the rest of the time it's been over 40 hours, and the town administrator was trying to hire him for even more hours to be a clerical position. Again, if I had any confidence, maybe I shouldn't be getting involved in the employee stuff, but there's zero confidence. As far as the memo that outlines, from the town administrator outlines that he and administrative assistant Sandy Robinson made a decision not to take any time off. That's a pretty clever thing to put in writing, but I'm not sure that under the labor laws that you can have an employee decide not to get any overtime and not to work overtime. So I don't think that was a smart thing to put in writing. So I would like, again, the ad, and I don't know any other departments that can just go out and recruit people if they can't find someone to be in it. And certainly, I think the Board of Selectmen has asked questions, where's the money coming from, what account? We've gotten no answers in this memo. The one we did talk about tonight, and we did ask some questions in executive session, and then the position, the administrative position in the front office. The employee's been out for a long time. Well, how long? Because that was what the question was. And when are they coming back? I think they're coming back. What about that? And then it's been brought to my attention, and I'm going to look into it, that a selectman sat in a meeting with the town administrator and the employee and discussed things like the stipend position, that we agreed to pay a stipend for that person to run the upstairs support staff, and that the town administrator rolled it into that employee's salary. So they're still getting paid, and that job's not being done. And that's a long-time employee that we should take care of. But I do imagine there's procedures and protocol for this, not just a wing it because our town administrator decides he wants to. So I will send you the questions
that,
because
and
it's
we'll
not really on the
follow up.
agenda tonight.
Yep.
And I will expect that someday I'll get an answer.
And we will. Don?
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up on the DPW position. I actually had an occasion to sit down and directly talk to Chris as to how the person was recruited and what fund he was being paid out of. Off of that, I also checked with Munis and what we were doing, and I was assured it was a part-time employee. In this memo, it's almost insulting. This memo that's part of our packet indicates that he'll return to his part-time schedule. There was never a part-time schedule. It was 3 weeks. And even at that, it was over 30 hours. I mean, there's something wrong with this. This is not really illustrative or entirely truthful. The person has been working full-time. They were not recruited full-time. And I was told, I asked if they were being paid out of the overtime account, and I was told they're being paid out of the seasonal account for seasonal employees. I'm not sure how you can do that year-round.
Well, this, Michael,
Just
go
last
ahead.
follow-up, just for the DPW director, or for the administration, the second memo that's in our packet tonight breaks all the HIPAA laws. You can't mention employees by name and that they're in the hospital and why you're doing stuff, and I think Chris might even have a hard time arguing with me about that. So maybe we should say what we can put into the packet and what we can't put into the packet as well.
You guys are going to send me your comments, and we'll give Chris a chance to clarify those issues, and I'll bring it back. Okay? Is there anything else? We'll move on to approve annual committee meeting list. What action do we need to take on that?
I move that we approve the annual committee meeting list.
Is there a second? I'll second it.
Yep, I was just trying to get it
Okay.
in front of me.
Any more discussion? Don?
Yeah, I just want to point out that the discussion that we were to have with the Charter and Bylaw Review Committee for tonight, they weren't given any notice really to be able to post to have the meeting. So somewhere along the line, we should
Will we do
It should be
this?
here, and it should be sooner rather than later,
Okay.
because it has to be responsible for writing articles, and it can't go on forever. But it has to be sufficient to give the notice of a public meeting, if they're gonna be asked as a committee to come here.
I guess we didn't formally ask them. We did bring it up the last time they were here about hopefully making this meeting, but.
All the committees were given the budget calendar
We
too,
didn't,
Mr. Chairman, so.
I agree,
That
we
has
didn't,
to do with tonight, not this.
yeah. They were, Don, they were at, but we didn't make a formal request.
Yeah.
We did the informal request.
My point was, it wasn't insufficient time for them to post.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Moving on to Selectmen's reports. Steve, any item? Michael?
So I asked 2 weeks ago that we get together a letter of thanks on behalf of the town to all involved in the cleanup.
Yeah.
Where are we at with that? I guess that's one question. I really think it's important with the amount of outreach that we had and the amount of communities that were involved that we thank everybody that was involved. Second, I was forwarded an email by, I think it was Sheila House, that wanted to do some sort of gathering to thank the town,
Yeah.
town crews, fire department, police department, DPW. My response was, yes, absolutely, we should, but we should also include the water department
Yeah.
and anyone else that was instrumental in that.
No, and I also responded, it's a great idea. My only concern was the space. Because she was suggesting we do it in the Albert House, I think, and I'm not sure if we get everyone.
No.
We need probably bigger space.
But I really would not want to lose the opportunity to thank the communities that helped us.
Yeah.
And Eversource and everybody else involved. That's
Okay,
it.
thank you. Ed? Don? No.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion, wait a minute.
Don, did you want to do anything on what you called me about today?
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I had a meeting with Albert Rainio and Angelina Chilaka, and Brenda Collins. They had submitted a letter, but it was too late to get on the agenda. They were being asked to pay a $50 fee for the health department to be in the community center for when President Tavares comes. I would argue that this is not reasonably anticipated as something to be able to agenda, because we're not going to have another meeting until it's going to be a moot point.
Right.
Between that and a rental fee for a room, I would like to make the argument, and I think it's an easy argument to make, that this is not really either a citizens group or a 501c3 that's asking to do this. This is really a town function. We are, Sarah, I've spoken with her. I've spoken with Julian's chief of staff. They've even got the state senator from Plymouth coming because he was born in Brava. This is really a civic event that the town and the state government are celebrating. Vinnie DiMacedo, as I said, is going to be there too. And so is our delegation. I think
Don,
that we
this
should
is,
really waive the fees.
This is, falls under reasonably, topic's not reasonably anticipated by the chair.
Yeah, I didn't
So,
find out about it until Friday.
Make the motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we waive any and all fees for the use of the community center on August 28th in furtherance of Mr. Governor and President Tavares's visit.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
I'm just going to comment
Michael?
that I fully support this 100%.
I know.
I'm going to equate this to the same as I did with the piano when Ed brought it up. I don't think that I think it's a stretch to call this an emergency. However, I do support it, but I am going to vote no because I think it's a violation.
Okay.
And I get how you feel. I do.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One opposed, so 4-1. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.